Welcome to the June podcast. This is episode 3 of season 2. And I really hope, although I'm really late on this one, so the turnaround time would be monstrous, but like I'm recording this on May 27th. Typically I'm done it halfway through the month. It's been a wild bear of a month. There's been a lot going on. So I don't know if I can do this, but I'm hoping to do 2 podcasts in June. 2 of these. So, because episode 3 coming into June halfway through the year, not really what I'm looking for. I want to crank more out, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. Let's go and do a little bit of promotion. I'm over on Tier 3 on Patreon. That's where you'll find all the early access. As I record this, now I'm flying without a net here. As I record this, there is nothing on early access. I've released all the hounds. So, well, there is, you will find the podcast out of time. It's a full, complete podcast recorded over a year ago that has not been released. It's just, maybe that'll be the second one I do in June. Or maybe I'll do a third one in June. Because it's really old now, so I want to replace it with a new podcast at a time, but I can't do that until I record a new podcast at a time. So you've got that. You've got a 90-minute podcast recorded at a time. I think it's about time travel. I don't remember. It's quite a while ago, but it's good shit. So, whenever I record my new podcast at a time, I will do the comments I've gotten on Patreon so far. So I'll respond to those. So that'll be fun. I think maybe that's what I'll do, if nothing else. But when you see this on June 1st, there will be early access. There won't be a full podcast yet. Hopefully that'll come within 2 weeks of June 1st. There'll be a couple minis there. So that's my goal. We'll see if I get there. But that's the promotion. Just support me. If you become a member, maybe I'll start doing some podcast stuff, membership-only podcast stuff. Maybe I'll do that too, actually, now that I think about it. I've been doing Welcome to Derry and Stranger Things. Kind of similar vibe to those 2 shows. Maybe I should do some anime shit on my memberships. That would actually make sense, right? Dumbass. On my anime channel, maybe I should do some anime for my membership. Huh. You can get early access there. So, yeah, there is that. But, for anime shows. Anyway, enough promotion. Let's get into this shit. The first thing we're going to do is all the corners. And then I'll come back with my main topic, which is what makes anime work. And in true anime form, when you ask this question, you have to have your fist like this. Can't be like this. Your fist like this. And you have a determined expression on your face. And you're earnest and you mean this. Because that's one thing that makes anime work. Earnestness. But we'll get back to the main topic after the corners. Okay, a couple updates. I've recorded the main topic. I've recorded the Q&A. I've even recorded another corner, the One Punch Man corner. But you will notice there will only be 3 corners here. 2 previously recorded ones, and then I just recorded a One Punch Man corner. But I've decided I'm running out of time. I have to get to other things. There's other things I need to do. There's only so much time I can spend on podcasts. And I got a great idea for what my second podcast for June is going to be. There'll be no main topic. It'll be all corners. So it'll be a corner. I'm going to do a corner for every single anime I'm currently watching, plus a couple for animes I have already finished. Or I watched a little bit of and quit or whatever. So maybe Death Note will be on there. So that's going to be the second podcast this month. No main topic, all corners. And that's how I can get a second one this month. And so that will allow, and also because I'm running out of time now and because I'm going to do more corners later this month, that's my get out of jail free card. So I can, get out of this podcast. It's only doing 3 corners. I prefer to do 5 or 6. But I want to do 3 here because we're getting a shit ton more corners. So every single show I watch, you don't have to request corners this month. Later this month, I'm doing a corner on everything. We'll see. We'll see if I can pull it off. Because like I will say later, I've already recorded this, but you'll see it later. I'm not just going to talk about something to talk about it. I need something to actually talk about. I need a thing to do. That's why I can't do any more today, because there's nothing else I want to talk about for any, like Gintama. I want to talk about him. I'd love to talk about Apothecary Diaries, Love is War, a lot of this shit. But nothing comes to mind right now. And I'm not just going to sit here and waste your time with some shit I don't care about. But over the course of a full month, I will come up with things to talk about, believe me. Something will perk my interest. It always does. So we will have, a few weeks from now, we'll have an all-corner podcast. And so just because we're short for this one, just because there's only 3 for this one, don't worry, we're getting a lot more later. Second thing I want to talk about, I also just finished recording a members-only podcast that is hot takes. Now, I put a post up. Let me see if I've gotten any responses yet. Nothing yet. But if anybody answers with their personal hot takes, that will be a separate podcast. That'll be a public podcast with your specific hot takes you replied to my post with. If you don't, then I just won't do that podcast. But the podcast I just recorded has nothing to do with my post. It was hot takes I found on the internet. So it ranges from, we talk about GARP, we talk about fan service, we talk about, what was the last thing we talked about here? Oh, sub versus dub. There was an interesting take on that as well. So I found a bunch of hot takes online, and I respond to them. And so that's a members only podcast. So you can either become a YouTube member to get that, or you can go to tier 3 on Patreon and you can get that podcast. That podcast will never come to public. I'm probably going to do a members only podcast once a month or once every 2 months or something like that. Some random side topic. You're not missing a whole lot if you don't want to do that, if you don't have the money or whatever. You're not missing a terrible amount. But if you are interested and you're just waiting for a little bit extra motivation to join one of these things, there you are. You can check it out there. So just wanted to update my promotion because earlier when I recorded the first part of this, I hadn't done anything. Now I've already done a whole nother mini podcast. So, hey, man, I've had a pretty productive day. It's only 12:48 p.m., so we're getting shit done. But I do have to move on. So let's go ahead and get to the corners and to the rest of this podcast. Welcome to the Black Clover corner for June, and hopefully I remember to incorporate this a little bit more elegantly than I did last time I pre-recorded one of these corners. It's completely forgot it existed. You know, it happens. I'm recording this on May the 2nd, so, I mean, literally you're going to see it a full month after I recorded. But it occurred to me today, I'm trying out my laptop, I'm trying to figure things out, so I recorded a reaction to episode 77 earlier today on my laptop just to see what's the sound like, what does it look like visually, you know, how good's the resolution, you know, all that stuff, because the controls on the laptop are very dumbed down. It's like, this is a very large file. That don't tell me shit. Is it 1900 by 10, whatever, you know, whatever it is? 120, I think it's, is it 1900 by 1200, I think, something like that. Because I see those numbers, I'm like, okay, we're working with pretty good resolution. Just saying, hey, this is a fairly large file, that don't tell me jack shit. So it's dumbed down. Anyway, that's not the point of this. The point is, I get into editing, and somehow it incorporated the video sound into my recording. I don't even know how the hell it did that, because I was using headphones. I don't know, like, you know, why would it integrate that? I guess, you know, mainly OBS is intended for streaming. So you maybe, like, if you're streaming, you want the video game sound or something in the stream for people to hear. This one I'm using right now on my old computer is not set up that way. I've never had it set up that way. I've never encountered this issue before. But thank God I checked after just one video, because there's no way to put that on YouTube without it getting blocked. And my sound is incorporated. There's no way to separate it out, unless there's different audio channels. Let me look. I don't think there are. I think it's just all one audio channel. Let me look at that real quick. No, there is not. It's not separated out. I say that because sometimes it just occurred to me. Some cameras people will record on, we would have multiple audio channels, right? Like we'd have the camera audio, which is just useful for syncing the video to the audio. Then we would have the boom mics, and there might be two boom mics. Sometimes there'd also be wireless audio. So we have camera audio that comes with the video clip. Then we have two boom mics and wireless audio. Sometimes, most of the time, all the boom mics and wireless audio would be on separate devices and come as separate files. You just got to sync the files up. That can get complicated. But there was one camera we used that it all went into the camera and it all came out as separate audio tracks. So it would already be integrated, right? Synced up and everything. It was beautiful. I forget what camera that was. But you would take the video clip and it would have, like, you know, depending on how many, you know, two boom mics and wireless and then the camera audio, you could have like 8 audio tracks, right? Because it'd be right, left on everything as well, right? 8 to 10 audio tracks, all attached to the video. And at first I was confused, and I didn't realize that this is way back when I was first editing. I didn't realize I could separate out, okay, we don't need the camera audio, and for this particular scene, I don't want to hear the breathing of the person in with the wireless mic and everything, so I can take that out. For a second, I was thinking, hey, maybe this does that since it's some new, complicated, newfangled, new technology bullshit. This is why I don't get new shit, man. The learning curve to figure out how to use this goddamn laptop is going to be super beneficial. There's already things I can do on it that's going to help me out. I screen recorded a movie today while I was screwing around doing other shit over here. I was downloading files, and I did this sample reaction while I was screen recording. So I was actually able to get shit done, right? So and that's just going to increase. But learning the new shit takes time. So while I'm taking time, I'm wasting time. Just learning shit. I hate learning shit. That's why I don't play any new video games. The video game I play is 15 years old because I'm not trying to learn any new goddamn video games. I don't have time to learn new shit. So, that's what it is. So anyway, the point being, I discovered it's essentially a wasted reaction for YouTube. So I'm about to record it again. I'm going to do a rewatch. And then people on Patreon, I'll be able to give them the original reaction because I could put it somewhere besides YouTube. Because if I put it on YouTube, I get it blocked. So annoying. But in the course of doing this, I was thinking about this show. And I was thinking, okay, it's something about it. I was thinking, well, do I just want to do a rewind? And I was saying, I have a lot to say about this episode. So maybe a rewind. And I was thinking, well, what I have to say about this episode is competition. So that's finally 6 minutes into this is my point of this corner. This show, more than any show I've ever seen, is about competition. And I know a lot of anime, My Hero Academia is about competition. But competition is baked into the DNA of the show because we've got two brothers competing to become the Wizard King. It's right there. Then you've got the competition of learning. You got the competition between the different houses. You have competition within the houses to get promoted. Competition with, like Luck wants to fight everybody. Half the character motivations are competition. Noelle's competing with other people for affection. The fairy is competing with every woman that walks and talks for affection. And whoever it is it Finrio or is it somebody else who's obsessed with his sister that, competing with everybody for his sister's affections? And so, from the ground up, every level of storytelling, this show is about competition. Every single level. And that's just amazing to me. Like, I've never seen a more thematically consistent series in my life. Like Supernatural went 15 seasons, and so they kind of they wandered off the reservation a couple times. They lost the mission, bro. You lost the mission, bro. At its heart, it's about two brothers who, no matter how much they argue and bicker, and they do, at the end of the day, they always come back for each other, and they will sacrifice anything for each other. That's the thematic heart of the entire series. There are seasons where they lost their way. There's character moments. The actors hate season 8, for instance, because one of the brothers wasn't willing to sacrifice anything for his brother. Not even talking about like the ultimate sacrifice of giving your life for your brother. He just wasn't willing to do anything, and that didn't ring true. It doesn't ring true for the series. So I don't know if this is going to be thematically consistent for the rest of the run. I do know I'm 76, 77 episodes into it. And Jesus Christ, man, like that is so thematically consistent. Every single thing about this series, from the two brothers, to the houses, to the individual character relationships, to the interactions, even we're competing with other kingdoms, and then we're competing with the fairies. Some of these competitions are lighthearted and low stakes, and some of them are everything, but everything's about competition. And I don't think you can say that about every show. A lot of the shows is about cooperation. And yes, we have teamwork a little bit. See, My Hero Academia is about competition, but it's also about cooperation. It's about teamwork. It's about working together. That's the thematic heart of that series. Maybe surface level, you'd say it's about competition. Midoriya wants to be the best. But, not necessarily. It could be still... it's more about teamwork. Like, you really do a deep dive on My Hero Academia. That's what that show's about. This show's about competition. This show believes it posits the notion. You get better with competition. Competition is good. This feels like a capitalistic show in a way. Now, not all capitalism is just about competition. It's really about greed. Really, that's the problem with that, with capitalism. Greed. We always have to be making more. Making the same amount is not good enough. Having the same market share 2 years in a row is devastating. It's horrible. It doesn't work in capitalism. And you could say competition is about becoming the best, but see, there's no goal beyond becoming the Wizard King. There's no goal beyond just being having the only person that Asta is, being the only woman in Asta's life. There's no goal beyond. I guess you could say marriage or something, but there are end goals for these competitions. Capitalism has no end goal, so that's not a perfect analogy, and I don't think this is about capitalism. I just want to put that out there because somebody could make that argument. I don't think it's about capitalism. I think it's about competition. Competition is everything. The author is probably a massive sports and video game fan because in sports, competition is everything. That's the whole damn point. Video games, competition is everything. Either you're competing with other players, or you're competing with yourself, or you're trying to speed run, you're trying to do it faster, you're trying to min max, you're trying, what do they call that when you get all the goals? Is that just called 100% in the game or something like that? Constant competition. That's what video games are about. That's what sports are about. So I imagine, as I am, I'm a huge sports fan. I'm a huge video game fan. I don't have time for either one these days, but in my younger days, I was very obsessive in both things. So I understand the impulses. I understand the drives and the passions that go into this. So yeah, I just think that it just hit me today. Like, it really crystallized for me today. This show, Black Clover, is about competition. And that's the lens through which I'm going to be looking at this from here on out. And I wanted to open the conversation. I would love for people to push back against this, or to come up with even more examples I haven't even thought of yet. But, and I'll be very curious to see, obviously don't spoil me on this, but I would be very curious to see throughout the rest of the series, does that hold up for the rest of the series? That is a very interesting idea. I'm not sure, if it does, I would be very impressed, because it's hard, like I was talking about Supernatural, to be thematically consistent throughout the run of a long-running show. And this is a long-running show. You figure probably most anime, these days at least, this is a more modern anime, would be lucky to get 30 to 48 episodes a year. So we're talking about 4 or 5 year run minimum, so it's hard to be thematically consistent. And of course the manga, is what originated all this. Maybe a little bit easier to keep that thematically consistent, but still, the longer you go, the harder that is to do. So anyway, I just wanted to start the conversation rolling, so let me know what you think. So I'm in the middle of watching the 8th episode of season 3 of Demon Slayer, and this is where I paused it. As you can see, we're having a rollicking good time. Like these people are really enjoying their flashback here. This is a flashback for one of the characters. A secondary, maybe even a tertiary character we just met, by the way. We've only known him for about 3 episodes, maybe 4. And this episode has mostly been the flashback. And as you can see, he's having a great time. He's just, man, he is really doing well. That's him to the right, by the way. Although, it's kind of hard to tell the difference. One of the characters is missing an arm, that's not him. The one missing an arm's on the bed. So, yeah, they're having a great time. And so I paused it, took a nap, woke up, realized where we were in the story, and I was like, you know what? It occurred to me that I want to talk about this. This is my Demon Slayer corner for the month. But this is really talking about anime in general, flashback. We can even just call it the flashback corner. Because I think this is a problem, specifically with modern anime, is every goddamn body has to have a miserable flashback. Misery porn. Misery flashback porn, we might call it. Like, it's everybody. They had a horrible, especially in this show, but it's not just this show. We're talking about Jujutsu Kaisen. What else am I watching where this happens? I don't think there were many happy flashbacks in Seven Deadly Sins. I don't know. This has happened more than this, but I just don't remember. So, but yeah, it happens a lot in anime. And the thing is, culturally speaking, I think the Japanese believe the only kind of interesting backstory is a miserable one. It informs the character in present day. So in present day, there's a potential they can have a happier life. This is why they're helping people. This is why they're evil. This is why they're going to help this person specifically when they haven't helped anybody before. This is why they're going to risk their life and probably lose their life for other characters. Like, it's all because they have a miserable backstory. Where I think the show Lost proved you can have an indifferent backstory that explains your motivations. You can have a positive backstory that explains your motivations. Sometimes good things happen to you, and that's why you're a good person in the future. That's why you're not maybe not necessarily good things happen to you, and that's why you're a bad person in the future. But it could just simply be that you were raised. Say you were raised with really pragmatic parents who don't believe in religion. It's made very clear in the flashbacks they don't believe in religion. They treated you well. They provided everything you needed, but they don't believe in religion, and they believe you should always be paid for what you do. You should never just do anything for free. That's not a bad flashback. That's not a miserable flashback, but it can 100% define who you are in present day. Like, who you are in present day is you're a miserly person who doesn't believe in God. Like, get me paid and F your religion, right? So, you don't need your parents to have been ritually murdered by a religious fanatic to be why you don't believe religion in the future. Maybe you don't believe religion in the future because they never believed in religion, you know? So, it's not always... It's always cranked up to 11. Like, even my own personal backstory, I was talking about this recently in a movie about drinking. And in the movie about drinking, there was this woman who had a kid. The daughter at the time was like 17. And she's drunk, and she's cussing out her daughter and embarrassing her daughter really bad, right? And so I talked about my own life, where my mom was a drunk, but she was not an angry drunk. She wasn't a drunk who would embarrass you. She would just lay in her bed and cry when she was drunk. She'd cry herself to sleep. That was it. That was my experience. I don't have a single memory of my mother screaming at me or hitting me because she was drunk. Now, neither my father, because my father stopped drinking before I really remember. I was really young when she took us away, and that's the day he stopped drinking. And so for all the visits, he was sober, right? I heard he was an angry drunk. I never experienced it. So both my parents were drunks. I have no memory of a blood relative being drunk and being mean to me, or being mean to each other. Whereas, I had drunk stepfathers who were mean, but like they weren't my blood relatives. I didn't give a shit about them. It's not the same, right? When you care about somebody and they're your blood relative and they're mean to you because they're drunk, that's just a completely different experience with all that, right? So my point is, I didn't have the cranked up to 11 miserable ass flashbacks when it comes to drinking and my parents. But I was still very wary of drinking. Like, the reason I never really started getting drunk until after Dad died was because, for one thing, Dad told me if I ever started drinking, he was so worried about me being a drunk, right, and ruining my life. He said if I ever started drinking, he would start drinking again. We didn't want that. So I would have maybe... And my thing back then was margaritas, right? Like, because, it's a mixed drink, and you had to get the salt and sweet and, all that stuff, right? So socially, I would drink a martini, a margarita or two with a client, an investor, or with the actors after finishing a movie or something, or we're just out. Like, say we're in LA trying to pitch a movie. We're at the hotel bar before we go to sleep. I'll have a couple of margaritas. Never more than two in the span of a year, a calendar year. Maybe I had 6 to 8 drinks in a calendar year. And that was all I drank. And it was never around Dad. I never had any drink at the house. It was always socially, always when I was out for an overpriced mixed drink. After he died, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to see how the other side lives. Thinking, this is kind of dark, but thinking I was going to just drink myself to death because I assumed I was an alcoholic because my parents are alcoholics. And come to find out I'm not an alcoholic, or I would have drank myself to death probably that first year. I was like, well, I enjoy drinking, but I could take it or leave it. And the funny thing is, when I started my reaction channel, it was a drinking reaction channel. That was the whole point. I would drink and I would react. And the more I worked on my channel, the less I drank because it was hard. The hangover the next day was hard. So I couldn't get all my work done if I was feeling like shit the next day. So I dialed back the drinking to the point now where I can go a full week without drinking. I have a lot of driving. I have a side gig as a driver, and I never drink the day before I drive, or the day of course. So that also inhibits when I can do it. So there's only usually like 2 days where I could conceivably drink, and it's never a good time. It's like, oh man, I got all this shit to do. I have all this shit to do tomorrow. So that tells me I'm not an alcoholic, because an alcoholic wouldn't take these things into consideration. That's the whole problem. The reason why being an alcoholic is a problem is you have no control. You can't be like, well, shit, I got to work tomorrow. I got to drive tomorrow. So I'm not going to drink today. Alcoholics can't do that. So I know I'm not an alcoholic. But I always assumed I was growing up until Dad died. Because my parents were, both my parents and all four of my grandparents were all alcoholics. And it was a problem in every case. So what I'm saying here is I was afraid to drink because my parents, even though they hadn't done anything really horrible to me, and I'd never seen my grandparents drunk either, I'd only ever heard about it. I heard about my dad's drinking. I did see my mom's drinking, but it wasn't bad as far as damaging me. Yeah, as an 8-year-old, seeing your mom cry herself to sleep in her bed with, a bottle of liquor is not great, but it's not her throwing a lamp at me or something, or whatever the hell could happen when your mom's drunk and she's angry, screaming at you, saying you're not hers or whatever, the heinous shit you know can happen, right? If I was an anime character, she would have done that shit. She would have tried to stuff a bed down my throat or some shit, right? Like, because she was so drunk and angry. And that's just, it didn't happen like that. It didn't take seeing her being angry, mean, drunk for me to be afraid of drinking all my life. It just took the stories. Here's how Dad was when he was drunk. Here's how your dad's parents were. Here's how mom's parents were. And so those stories, and just the mere fact that all 6 of my direct ancestors, yeah, I think ancestors is the right word, all 6 of my direct ancestors were alcoholics. Now, was that a medical diagnosis that they were alcoholics? I don't know, but like, they all had problems. It was a problem. Mom's father almost got thrown out of the Navy because he was drinking too much on the job, right? And he was in the Navy for 30 years, and he retired as an E4, because every time you get to an E5 or E6, you get busted back a rank or get denied promotion because he was a drunk. 30 years being an E4 is ridiculous. You should be an E8, and he could only get up to E4 because he kept getting busted. So that's how bad his drinking was. So in a modern Navy, they would just kick him out, right? So I heard all these stories, and hearing the stories was enough, but that doesn't make for a great anime flashback. But it should, right? See, they always have to crank everything up because they think I feel like it's a dumbing down for the audience. I believe you could take my actual backstory, where I only heard stories about drinking and saw my mom cry herself sleep, and that was it, and there was nothing more extreme than that. And then I have a lifetime being afraid of drinking, more than 1 or 2 drinks at a time, more than 6 to 8 drinks in an entire year. If that's the character's afraid to drink, and say you need to drink to save the world or some shit, and he just doesn't want to do it because of it. Then you show the flashbacks, and he doesn't want to do it because of the flashbacks. But it doesn't have to be that, Dad threw him down a flight of stairs and Mom tried to stuff a bed down his throat because they're so damn mad at him because they're drunk, for him to be afraid all his life of drinking. And so I think that the manga authors who originate these stories, and then the showrunners in the anime, they crank everything up to 11 because they don't think an audience is going to understand anything less than that. Would an audience understand my backstory? I truly believe so. Now maybe it would require some dialogue, which you don't necessarily want to do. In anime, I will give them this. They prefer to show, don't tell. They want to show the heinous backstory. So this is why the character is the way he is. He doesn't have to tell a friend at a pool or sitting on a beach or at a bar, well, my brother got his arm ripped off, and that's why I became a demon slayer. They haven't finished this, so I'm not sure exactly what's going on here, but that seems to be what they're doing here. This is why he's such a good demon slayer, and why he's a little bit autistic coded, because he didn't have a normal childhood, right? So I just think that it's heavy-handed. It's become a cliche. And once you get a backstory, you just know the misery's coming, so it doesn't have the emotional impact it should have. I should be more emotionally wrecked with this backstory. But there's 2 problems. 1, we just met you. I just met you. I'm not crying over somebody I just met. I just met you. And 2, I've seen it, man. I know. Yeah, everybody gets ripped apart. The room is covered in blood, and you're the sole survivor of your entire genetic family. I don't know how there's any humans left in this land, because every time we meet somebody, their entire family's been butchered. How the hell is there anybody left to propagate the species, man? Every time we turn around, the entire families are being destroyed, man. It's become a cliche, specifically with Demon Slayer, but in more broad terms overall with anime in general. So, I don't know, man. Like, I think it's a problem. And I think they need to dial it back, and they need to tell other kinds of flashbacks, or just don't do. Do we need a flashback for everybody we run across? You know, it feels manipulative. Like we need you to care about this person, so let's give him a tragic backstory. And that was fine 20 anime ago. But people talk about sometimes you watch too much anime, you get jaded, and I think this is one of the reasons why. You know, it's like maybe there's a set amount of anime you're supposed to be watching, and that's it, because it gets repetitive after that. And so for me, I just think that, like I said, I think it's heavy-handed. I think it's manipulative, and it doesn't have the emotional punch it used to have. So whereas if it was a more subtle take on this, maybe it's not that his parents were killed when he was 10. Maybe it's that his parents just didn't know how to communicate. And so they never really taught him social customs, and they weren't good teachers. They were so obsessed in their own lives, maybe they're narcissistic, they didn't teach him how to socially relate to other kids. And I don't know that school's a thing here, so you can't get your social cues from going to school, right? You could pretty much achieve the same thing, and then maybe he just heard stories of what demons did. Like there's a neighbor who he's seen it all. He's seen all the bad flashbacks. He keeps moving every time there's a demon attack. And so he just inundates you with these stories until you just, not only you fear the demons, you hate the demons. And that's why you became a demon slayer. And you never encountered one until you were a demon slayer. Now, there is a badass thing, so I want to ruin this for you. They did do something with this, with him being 10 years old, 11 years old, that I think foreshadows how good of a demon slayer he is, and is really badass. So that you would lose that if you do what I'm talking about. So maybe that's not good. It's not great to lose that, I don't think. But that's the only negative I can see. Because otherwise, man, this is just, it's too much. And like I said, there's other ways to accomplish this that doesn't, I'm not like some shrinking violent, oh my God, let's not have any violence. It's just overdone. Do something different. And then we're sitting, on the edge of our seats, and then we're like, oh my God, wow, they're really doing something here. This is different. This is interesting. I think the audience can appreciate those kind of subtleties. It doesn't have to be cranked up to 11 all the time. So, just some thoughts. I'll go back to finishing this episode now, and then maybe I'll even feel differently then. If I feel radically differently, I'll come back here, but don't expect to see me back here because this feels pretty solid, what I'm saying here. And plus, it's not just about this one episode. This is about, in general, what I've been seeing over the past year or two. So, let's talk about One Punch Man. This is One Punch Man corner. The show is doing something very clever, and I'm only a few episodes in. I'm 5 episodes in. It's doing something very clever in that there is a component of being a hero that I believe is PR based. Now, we don't have real heroes, but we do see this with celebrities and athletes. Athletes tend to be like, as long as they win, they're going to be popular. Tom Brady is so popular, he's so big because he won 7 Super Bowls. There were a few tennis players who never really won a lot of championships or whatever they call them, but were super popular because they were very attractive. I think Andre Agassi was one of them. There was a couple women who were super attractive, but didn't really win. There was that Indy 500 racer, Danica Patrick, who has never won a race. I don't think she ever won a race. But she was attractive. So, they were popular. They had good PR. But typically, if you're famous in sports, it's because you win a lot of championships. There are some exceptions. Like I said, Tim Tebow was popular. Shedeur Sanders is kind of popular. He's got his stands and, his fanatics and stuff. But typically, to have any lasting impact in that arena, you have to win championships. Okay, so celebrities, it's a little bit more, they do have Academy Awards and you can win awards, but really, as long as your movies make money, and what are the reasons for that, that can vary quite substantially. you're going to be in the public eye. There was a time when overriding talent, acting talent, was why you were popular, because that was before we had PR. Like, you know, did I just watched I did an Oscar race with 5 women competing for Best Actress in 1981, and you had Susan Sarandon, Diane Keaton, Katharine Hepburn. Oh, Meryl Streep. Jesus, she's the one I picked to win, and I couldn't remember her damn name. Okay, so you had Meryl Streep, Katharine Hepburn, Diane Keaton, Susan Sarandon, and then Marsha Mason was the one who was like you hadn't really heard of. But of those 4, do you think in the 60s? I think they were probably all active in the 60s. Maybe Susan Sarandon and Diane Keaton were too young in the 60s. Maybe even Meryl Streep. I mean, Meryl Streep is pretty goddamn old, but like, you know, a lot of time has happened since, you know, it's been 40 years since 1981, right? So Katharine Hepburn died shortly after. Well, not shortly after, but I think she died in 2003. But she was old. She was like in her 90s. So Katharine Hepburn in the 50s and 60s, do you think she had a agent, a public relations person? Maybe she may have had a personal assistant who handled things, because I mean they appeared on TV shows. I guess you needed people to take those calls, but it's probably just their manager. Their manager probably doubled as their public relations person. Nowadays, that is a separate ass job. You have a manager, you have an agent, and you have a public relations person. In the 50s, you probably just had a manager, or maybe you just had an agent. Most likely, I think agents came first. Then you need somebody to manage your career, and then you need somebody to handle public relations, right? So the point being, Meryl Streep, Katharine Hepburn, Diane Keaton, and Susan Sarandon were famous over the course of their careers because they were good actors. They were really good actors, and they were attractive. That they'd be attractive helps, but still, they were good actors, really good actors, and they got a lot of good roles. Who are the famous actors now? They all have press agents. They have public relations companies handling them. The biggest actors. You know, and so now is a packaged thing. You could have somebody who is one of the best actors you've ever seen, and nobody's ever heard of them because they don't have good PR. They don't take the right roles. One movie bombs. Like you had that dude in who played he played Jacob in the Twilight movies. He was big for 5 minutes. And the Twilight movies are only going to last for so long, so your next thing you do is so crucial, right? And there's 3 of them. There's Robert Pattinson, whatever the hell the asshole who played Bella was, whatever her name is, and then you had this guy Laudner, whatever Hugh Laudner, whatever the hell his name is, playing Jacob. The other 2 made good choices on what movies to do outside the Twilight franchise, and they have lasting staying power. The Werewolf Boy didn't make good choices. And you could argue that the acting talent was equal among them. Now, Robert Pattinson has really stood out as just a phenomenal actor, man. God, he is amazing. I don't even like him. I don't like him. You hear him talking in interviews, he just sounds like a royal douchebag. But man, that guy can act. So he was going to be successful probably no matter what. But you know, the Lautner werewolf guy, like, you know, and whatever the hell her name is, they're just average talent. They're mediocre actors. They're better than a lot of actors. Mediocre just means 50. You're at 50%, which means 49.9% of actors are worse than you. So you're better than a lot of actors. You're just not up in the upper top tier. You're not in the upper crust. So he made poor decisions, and he didn't have good PR. So where the hell is he now? Probably not even acting anymore. He fell by the wayside. So that's just what happens, right? So if we could extend that to an imaginary world where we have superheroes, then you can imagine you could have 2 people, one of them saving more lives than anybody, and the other one just, you know, randomly showing up at the right time, right place, and guess who's getting the PR? Guess who everybody knows? And that's the commentary they're doing with this series. At least they've started to get into that now, where I'm at in the series. He does have good PR. Nobody knows who the hell he is, right? So now he's trying to become an accredited superhero so he'll actually get press so people know who the hell he is. That's just a wonderful commentary because that would happen in real life. How the hell could you become famous as a superhero? Like, usually, like with Supergirl and then even Superman in some versions, they announce themselves on the scene by saving a jetliner, a passenger with 300 people on board. They save the plane, and then that's how everybody finds out that there's a Superman or a Supergirl. They both did it, right, in various incarnations. But you got to have a plane go bad. What are the chances of that when you're ready to announce yourself? Oh, well, there's a plane going bad. That doesn't happen very often. Like here in the United States, there's been like some collisions and some weird shit happening in the past year here in the United States. But before that, we had to go back 10, 15, maybe 20 years before you had an airplane just crash. It was up here and then it's in the ground. That just doesn't happen, man. And that's the case with both of these situations with Superman and Supergirl. The plane was up in the air and it's going to hit the ground and everybody's going to die. I mean, it happened September 11th, 2001 to 4 planes, but that was intentional. Since then, you even had that thing where at one point that dude landed the plane in the Potomac or something. He landed in a river next to the city. They came out fine. Now, that would have been a case where Superman and Supergirl would have come in handy. But very rarely. Usually it's like takeoff or landings, or there's in other countries there's been planes happening. There's a couple planes disappear in the Pacific. But there'd be a case where like something happened to the air. There was a hole and they lost all cabin pressure and everybody suffocated. And then the plane's just up there, but there's nobody left alive. That has happened a couple times. That even happened to one of our space shuttles, by the way. They were dead, before they hit the ground. But you need something like that, which, whether the chance, my point is there's not much of a chance of that happening just randomly, right? So I think that to get publicity, to be known as, hey, that's One Punch Man or whatever his name's going to be. This Batman is Superman. I recently bumped up against this problem, which I'd never thought of before. Why is Superman cooperating with the police and everybody loves him? Batman is considered a criminal and they want to catch him and lock him up. They both do the same shit. They like each other. They help each other. Well, one of them's a criminal and one of them is publicly lauded. Well, it's because Superman volunteered to cooperate with the government. Day one, hey, how can I help? I'm here to help. What are the guidelines? What are the guardrails? What do you want me to do and what do you not want me to do? And he abides by that shit. So he's not a criminal. Batman is like, F you. I'm going to do whatever the hell I want. So he's a criminal, right? But it's just basically just PR, isn't it? Isn't it just a difference in PR? So I think it's brilliant, and I need to get more into it before we can talk about this some more. But I'll revisit this. Like I said, which I haven't recorded yet, but you will see this before you see what I'm saying right now. My second podcast this month is going to be just corners. So I'm going to do a corner on every single anime I watch, maybe even some anime I've finished watching in the past. It'll just be a corner anime. That's how I'm going to get through it. That's how I'm going to get a second one this month. It's easy to do. I can record it piecemeal. And a lot of these animes have been underserved when it comes to the corners, like this one, because I realize I'm running out of time. I don't have time to do any more corners this month. Because I want to just sit here and talk. I want to talk about something. And there's nothing else I'm passionate about with any of the things I watch right now. But over the course of June, I will come up with some things. I always do. Like this pisses me off or that interests me. So anyway, I've already explained all this. Or I will have by the time you watch this. Point being, I will do a One Punch Man corner again this month to follow up on this after I've seen more episodes of One Punch Man to see if they're still doing this. But it's an interesting commentary, the fact that there is a PR component to being a superhero, which I'd never thought of before. Like, how do you become known to the public, and how do you become known to the public in the right way? I've seen superhero, for instance, like Batman is, the Nolan movies, Batman killed Two-Face or whatever. I've seen that shit. But I've never looked at it and I've never thought about it in this way. Because I've seen, like, we like this superhero, but now the public is mad at them because they think they did something. But then by the end of the episode or the end of the movie, the public realizes they were wrong and they're back on their side. and it's just wrapped up so fast, and you don't really have time to think about it. This is the first time I've seen it from the other way, where a character I don't know. Because even if I'm watching a new Superman movie, I still know Superman. I'm watching a new Captain America movie. I still know Captain America. I still know the Hulk. I still know Spider-Man. You know, Spider-Man specifically because he gets vilified in a lot of his versions with Jonah Jameson, right? So even if I'm watching a new one, I still know the character. So I've never entered this like having not known the character. But with One Punch Man, I don't know the character. And so seeing him go on this journey has given me an insight into the superhero culture and the PR component of it that I'd never thought of before. So I think it's brilliant. I think that's one of the things that makes season one so successful. They're doing things that I've never seen done before. And I've seen a lot of superhero shit. So that's where I'll leave this now. And then I will, like I said, later this month, I'm going to do a corner where we'll revisit this after I've seen some more episodes. Maybe they drop this and they do something else. And I'll be like, all right, well, that wasn't very much. Or they do a hell of a lot more with it, and I'll have a lot more to say. So we'll see how that turns out. All right, well, weren't those corners awesome? I'm just recording this a few seconds after I did the other thing, the intro. So, yeah, here we are with the main topic. I'm going to go back and do the corners later. But it all makes sense when you see the podcast. All right, what makes anime work? Here's what came to mind. This is when I talk about flying without a net. This topic came, and I have a lot to say. My notes, typically my notes are one paragraph. My notes for this are 2 pages. So I have a lot to say about this. What makes it hilarious is I didn't know what this podcast was going to be. I didn't know what the main topic was going to be. Did we even do a poll for the topic? I don't think we do polls. We do polls for mini podcasts. Because I'm only doing this once a month, I want to choose what I talk about. Good thing, because I have a lot to say about this. But as of yesterday, May 26th, I did not know what I was going to talk about. This arrived fully formed. I woke up this morning, I was like, I know what I'm going to talk about. Because I was kind of cooking on it overnight, right? So what happened yesterday was, I watched the Demon Slayer Season 3 finale. I'm not going to give any more details for that because it's relatively recent anime, and there's some big shit that happens in that finale. But it's the end of the Swordsmith Village arc, okay? If you know, you know. And I was crying like a baby. It deeply affected me emotionally. Then, same day, I did a reaction to the movie Requiem for a Dream. And if you don't know, that movie is about drug use and drug abuse, and it follows 4 different characters who are affected in various ways by drugs. You should have been called Requiem for a Drug. I don't know why. I know it's based on a novel that was called Requiem for a Dream, but that's just such a highbrow, ooh, bitter chrysalis, you know, ooh, this is my artistic novel. It's such a high concept, fancy, smancy title. Requiem for a Dream, you know, ooh. Just call it Requiem for a Drug or some shit, because that's what it's about. Maybe the novel's more complex. Maybe the novel doesn't suck. I actually thought the movie kind of sucked. But the direction was good. The musical score was good. And generally speaking, the performances were fantastic. It was just the script that sucked. So, the thing was, though, the entire time I was watching that movie, and before I even tell you how I reacted to it, let me read this little quote to you. Requiem for a Dream holds a... This movie came out in 2000, so it's 26 years old now. Requiem for a Dream holds a rightful reputation as being one of the most bleak and depressing movies in existence. Unsurprisingly, even the most dedicated of movie watchers steer clear of this flick for that very reason. So, begs the question, why did Patreon... Patreon voted for this. Patreon wants me to watch this movie. Why? The most depressing movie in cinematic history? And Lars Van Trier's, or whatever the hell his name is, was not involved? Amazing. How is that possible? Dumb and Dumber from Game of Thrones, you know, they weren't involved, and this is the most depressing movie in history. That's a pretty remarkable accomplishment. But it's the most depressing, bleak movie in history, and I laughed my ass off throughout the whole thing. When I had been bawling like a baby over anime just an hour before that. Why? What makes anime work? Why did anime have me bawling like a baby and Requiem for a Dream was just a farce, and I was laughing my ass off. Well, we're going to dig into that. Specifically with these two use cases, and I know it's a much more general, broad concept, but you can draw broad concepts from this very specific comparison. We're going to go into specifics today. Comparing and contrasting two things I watched on the same day, which means I had the same amount of sleep, same general attitude, same diet, same energy level. You know, they're recorded in the same day. So, all things being equal, that's as scientific as you can get. Now, yes, one was recorded after the other. So I'd already cried, so maybe that I was less prone to crying because I'd already cried. But that's not, you know, the end all be all, because there are times. I remember specifically there was an episode of One Piece that wrecked me, and then I watched two other things that day and cried on those two other things as well. Because actually, I think crying makes me more prone to cry to something else. Because I think one of them was like a Peaky Blinders or a True Detective. It was one of those two, something like that. It was live action. And then the other thing, I think, was a movie or something, right? And so I remember watching all those in one day, and I was sobbing like a baby all day. I was like, damn, the first thing made me prone to cry the rest. So I was probably more prone to cry. And this didn't affect me like that at all. So why, specifically? Okay, so let's get into it. First of all, I've listed the things in Requiem for a Dream that didn't work, that kind of held it back from being emotionally engaging, okay? Sense of humor. Now, to be very clear, anybody who's watched my Gintama reactions or some of the other shows I watch that are funny, I've always said, you can't be too funny because then you can't have emotional immersion. I know this is not true for everybody. Some people, like Gintama, they can cry over Gintama every week anytime there's something dramatic, but then they laugh their ass off when they're talking out of their butts, or they turn into a dog, or turn into a flute, or whatever, turn into a pickle, whatever the hell is happening, right? They can be emotionally engaged in something that's so stupid and silly that you would think people wouldn't be able to be emotionally engaged because it's just a farce. Nobody's crying over The Simpsons. Maybe in season 1 and 2, believe it or not, they used to be emotional. You could get emotional in The Simpsons season 1 and 2. Then it became what it is. So, generally speaking, you don't want to be too funny. And I think of it as like an elastic rubber band or a sliding scale. This side, emotional investment. This side, laughing. And you want to be somewhere in the middle, maybe a little bit one way or a little bit one other way. But if you get to 75% one way, the other way is screwed. If you get 75% the other way is screwed, right? You want your slider to be somewhere between the 25 and the 25. So you have 50% of the range to play with. You can be on either side of the dividing line. But you can be a little bit more funny. You can be a little bit more dramatic. X-Files, Stargate SG-1, Dark Matter, I think it was called. The Continuum. There's these shows that could be silly. Like, X-Files could have ridiculous, silly-ass episodes, but then have you crying the next week. Because I never went too far either way. So, you don't want to be, you're not talking out of your ass. You're not Dr. Giggles. What was that stupid Robin Williams movie about the funny doctor? Punch Love or whatever the hell that's called. You don't want to be that, right? But you have to do a little bit, because comedy is part of humanity. Comedy humanizes people. Think about it. You have a boss, and they're kind of a hard ass. And my assistant director was brilliant at this. He was a hard ass. He was a hardliner. We got 5 minutes. Come on, we got 5 minutes. He's looking at the schedule. It's already 1 o'clock. I just want to let everybody know it's already 1 o'clock, man. He was on that shit. He kept us on schedule. We were on schedule. But he would crack a joke. A couple times a day. He would crack a joke. He humanizes you. If you have a boss and he can crack a joke every now and then, and it's not like I said, you're not laughing all the time. You're still very productive. This isn't, the inmates running the asylum. It just is, every now and then there's a little bit of levity. It releases the tension. You need a little bit of levity. There was not very much comedy in this. Intentional comedy, I will say. It's just constant bleak darkness. So that's one of the reasons why I don't think it worked. Where anime is really good at sliding in a little bit of comedy. Even regular straight anime, dramatic anime. Nobody ever accused Demon Slayer of being a barrel of laughs. But they have plenty of comedy. It is a mostly dark, depressing show. Bad things happen to good people. almost everybody has a damn tragic backstory. I'll be talking about that at some point. You know, in fact, I already did because I pre-recorded the Demon Slayer corner. You've already seen that. Yeah, everybody has a goddamn tragic backstory, man. What the hell's wrong with you? But they can still put a little levity in there, right? That's what makes it work. Character development is, also a key component. You can't just have bad things happen to people and call that character development. And I think anime can sometimes fall victim to this, and it makes some anime better than others. For instance, like I was talking about with the corner, I'm just starting to come back to me. I recorded it about a week ago. Not every character needs a tragic-ass, depressing-ass backstory. You can do that in other ways, right? So, sometimes anime can fall victim to that. But you need, the backstory should motivate the character in the current day. Why do I not give a shit about YouTube comments, negative YouTube comments? Because I do give a shit about YouTube comments. It annoys me when channels say, oh, I don't read the comments and I don't care about the comments. Well, then why the hell would we leave one? I care. But the negative ones don't bother me. And Neil talks, and apparently he's back. Just a few days ago. I think he came back about a week ago. So I'm very excited that his channel's back. I don't know that he's doing reactions. He seems to be doing like almost essay. It's almost like an essay channel now. He can do it early ones. I haven't watched any of his videos yet. But I saw the headline of one of them. And it made me kind of not want to watch it. Where it's like, we know he had left for a really long time, several years. He left for the first time he left for a year, came back for about a month, maybe two, and then left again for another year or two, right? Because I think he came back when season 1 of Fallout was out. Now he's back the same year as season 2 of Fallout. Wasn't there like 3 years in between? 2 or 3 years? That's how long he's been gone. He may have been gone, a total of 4 years at this point. Still love him, still love his channel. But anyway, so the headline of one of the videos it shows a comment. It's a screenshot of a comment. He blacked out the name, but it's a screenshot of a comment. It says, post a reaction video or I unsub. And then he says something about, let me quote him correctly. Let me see what the title is. He's rebranded his channel. I don't even think he's a reaction because it says, smart people, wild problems, fun times. And I love the graphics. He's got new graphics, so it looks pretty cool. We need to talk about this, and he's got an arrow pointing at the comment. So, clearly he has a problem with somebody saying that. First of all, people are subscribed to you because they want to see reaction channels. That's why they subscribed. If you're not posting reaction channels, I don't think it's an unreasonable expectation that they would just unsubscribe. I don't even think it's unreasonable that they would say that. I don't think that's an unreasonable, especially as long as he was away. It was like, would I do it? No, I'm not going to say post a reaction video or I'll unsubscribe. But I will. But I have unsubscribed from Domi, Alibox, and all these other people that have just stopped uploading, stopped publishing videos for sure. Because I'm there for reactions, and if they're not posting reactions, I'm out of there. That's not unreasonable. And like I said, I would never say post a video or I'll unsubscribe, but I don't think it's unreasonable that somebody would say that. I don't think it's unreasonable when's the next thing coming out, But really, so like this is things like that. It bothered him so much he quit the channel. He basically quit doing reactions because of the comments. There's a lot of negative comments. I know it was bothering him. I'm sure other things bothered him too. Maybe he was late and people got on his ass about it. Okay, but the point of all this is that doesn't bother me. The really super personal attacks, shitty comments don't bother me. And I've said this many times because I heard worse as a 10-year-old in the safety of my own house than has ever been said to me on the internet by anybody. I've heard worse. I don't give a shit. So my backstory, like if I was an anime character, it would show me looking at a shitty comment and be like, and scrolling to the next comment and just being completely unaffected. And then we would get a flashback of me being 10 years old and a grown-ass man who's currently having sex with my mother shouting one of the most awful things you could ever imagine. I'm skinny and they're calling me a glutton and a fat ass and they're going to chain the fridge and a scurrying little diseased rat and whatever the hell else, right? Like just the worst shit you could possibly imagine to a 10-year-old and younger and older. Like the shit started when I was 7, and then I ran away at 14. Right, so that age range, the most awful shit you could possibly imagine being said to me. So some internet moron thinks they can make me cry. Yeah, good luck. It's not a challenge. I'm not throwing the gauntlet down. I'm just saying I don't give a shit. And my flashback would explain why I don't give a shit. Character development, right? The past informs the present. I am the way I am because of what happened back then. And it's not super complicated. Wouldn't be very exciting to picture. That would probably be a pretty decent anime flashback. They tend to want to go harder. Like, stepfather killed my brother right in front of me or some shit. Like, they want to go harder, right? But so that's why the comments don't bother me, right? Would be like the anime flashback went really hard. So what I'm saying though is that you don't necessarily have to have bad flashbacks to inform people. Let me think about good flashback, because I think I was working against my point there. I got a little lost in the sauce. My love of reading came from my mother. Okay, so the anime flashback would be, well, actually both my parents. I would come in from school, and there was a time when she was working third shift, and then a few hours at night before third shift. So it's like a part-time job than third shift. Third shift typically is like, whatever the shift was, I don't remember. She wasn't at home when we left for school. But when we came back from school, she was home, typically on the couch, either had fallen asleep with a book in her hand, or was still reading when I would come in and would soon fall asleep. And then later we would wake her up so she could go to her part-time job and then go to the third shift job, right? So I would come home from school every day, 7, 8, 9 years old, and she'd be laying on the couch reading a book, always. She had a huge bookcase in her bedroom, and there was another huge bookcase in my bedroom that had her books. She had all these books, right? So I started taking the books down and reading them myself, just as a way to connect with her. And then I found the love for reading myself. Then later, I remember being with Dad, like 13 or 14, I think I was like 12. We were visiting my half-sister. She was a grown-ass woman, married, already had 3 kids. And I think I'd never met her before at this point. And we were staying at her house for a couple of days and I think we were going to like a theme park or something. So it was just Dad and I don't remember where my brother was. But it was just Dad and I at this point. So we went up there, and we had one bedroom we shared. There was 2 beds with the end table in between. And I remember that first night we go in there, and he gets in his bed, I get in my bed. First thing he does, whips out a book. He's got his lamp on. He starts reading. And I felt so good because I had a book with me. I probably wasn't intending to read at that point, but I was like, well, hell, he's got his book. So I whip out my book. I start reading, and I felt connected to it. Reading together. We're going to read ourselves to sleep. I would fall asleep first. I'd wake up the next morning. The book would be out of my hands and on the end table. The lights were off. He was waking me up, so we go. And we did it both nights we were there. Second night where I was all ready and shit. And other than hotels, that's the only time I really shared a bedroom with Dad. Even in hotels, he would do this. And by the time I moved out to live with him, much later in life, when I decided to go to college, I moved out to live with him so I could go to college. He had stopped reading. And it had something to do with like headaches and just older age, poor eyesight. Yeah, I've noticed myself, I kind of read less now than I used to. The TV was better, and you could get entertainment on demand now, and so he just stopped reading. So that was a thing of the past, right? But I remember that time, those 2 nights in this guest bedroom, just reading with him. He was reading a science fiction book. I was reading a science fiction book. And then with my mom. So these would be the anime flashbacks to explain my lifetime love of reading and eventually becoming a writer myself, right? So if you wanted to explain why is he a writer, then you can do positive flashbacks. Kind of what I was saying with the Black Clover corner earlier. Flashbacks don't have to be negative to give you backstory, to give you character motivation in the present. My character motivation for being a writer, for being a filmmaker, for even having this channel, because filmmaker, there's a direct line. Writing novels turned into writing scripts. Writing scripts turned into wanting to see my work get made by people. So I became a filmmaker to make it happen because I couldn't sell a script to anybody. And then becoming a filmmaker led me to starting a YouTube channel. Probably a few years after YouTube came out, I had already had a channel, right? And then having a YouTube channel and becoming a retired filmmaker led to me doing a reaction channel. I'm sitting here today talking because Mom was reading when I would come home from work, because Dad read those 2 nights. I knew he read books, but that was the first time I'd actually experienced him reading books and doing it with him and stuff. There's a direct line all the way back. So if we're doing anime flashbacks, that is my anime backstory to why I'm sitting here talking right now. So, and it's a positive backstory. You don't have to have a negative backstory to show character motivation in the present. So, having said all that, the only person who got any real backstory or character motivations in Requiem for a Dream, there were 4 main characters. The only person who got any development was the mom, and she was the only one who wasn't like a complete piece of shit. And she's the one, she also a phenomenal acting performance. Phenomenal acting performance by that actress, Ellen, whatever her name is. Apparently, Eric messaged me and said that she didn't, or I think he left a reply on a short, that she lost the Oscar, which is a damn shame, because she deserved an Oscar for that performance. It was just unbelievably good. So there's that. And they gave a little bit of backstory that, we know she has an adult son now who's kind of a piece of shit. He mistreats her, steals her TVs, and she has to buy it back from the pawn shop. Complete piece. We'll talk more about that later. But she has a dead husband who she adored, and she's gained weight, and she has no motivation. She has nothing she wants to do, and, she just kind of living a miserable life when we start the movie. So we get some modicum of backstory, right, for her. The other 3 characters, we get nothing. We don't know shit about them. Ooh, they like drugs. They want money. And that's it. You get nothing. You don't know jack shit about these people. We get a little bit of backstory in that the woman, Jennifer Connelly's character. I mean, this movie's 26 years old. Don't watch the podcast if you don't want to be spoiled at this point. And also, don't watch the movie because it sucks. But she, like her father, was a wardrobe designer, fashion designer or something, so she has designs, and that's what she wants to do, but then she got sidetracked by the drugs and all that shit, so, but, she gets that little, so something about her father, and then something about Jared Leto's character's parents, because we meet one of them, we hear about the other one, so I guess we know a little bit about him as well, as far as his backstory, but we don't know why these people got into drugs. Was it peer pressure? Was one of them doing it to the other 2? We don't know what motivates these people. Why do they want money so bad? Why do they want to be successful? There's a little bit of the pressures, like he wants to please his mom and take care of his mom, so there's that. We get a little bit here and there, but not very much. So we just don't get the character development to give a shit about these characters. And you don't necessarily have to. But I'll tell you one goddamn thing. If you don't have character development, because for instance, the first Indiana Jones movie, we don't know jack shit about him. We don't know about his parents. A lot gets filled in later. But don't backfill that when you watch the first movie the first time. Right? You only have that first movie. We know he's an archaeologist. Why? What's up with his parents? What motivates him? We get a little bit of backstory there with him and the girl he meets again. Apparently she was way underage. Like, holy shit, dude. So I guess we know he's a piece of shit. But we don't know we really don't know jack shit about him. We don't know much about Obi-Wan Kenobi. There's nothing to know about Luke Skywalker. There's nothing there. I mean, what would those flashbacks look like? Jesus Christ, man. He played in the sand. He's chasing womp rats around, right? So it can work without backstory. You can work without character development, because the development can happen on screen during the course of the movie. But you know what you have to have? You have to have a charismatic ass actor to pull that shit off. Or you have to have somebody else in the movie doing the heavy lifting. Because sometimes the first movie of character is boring, but the other characters kind of lift them up, and then by the time we get to the movie, okay, all right, they're a little bit of a badass. All right, I can see this. He blew up the Death Star. Cool. Han Solo and Leia carried that first movie. What the hell was interesting about Luke Skywalker in the first movie? It wasn't until he blows up the Death Star that anything interesting happened to him, and he did anything that he showed he had some balls, and he's tough. And he's played by a very charismatic actor. And then, Han Solo, and he probably even a little bit of Obi-Wan Kenobi, and then the robots. There's a lot lifted up. So you're not like, oh my God. Luke Skywalker, he's so boring, so let's just bail, right? You have other things working on it, right? Then you get the character development on screen. So you don't have to. There is no hard and fast rule. I'm just talking about you play the averages, right? You don't want to try to roll the hard six on everything you do in filmmaking or storytelling. So it can work without the character development, but this movie didn't work. So, and I think one of the failures was the character development, where in anime, you typically you get too much character development. But I'll tell you one goddamn thing. You know the characters. By the end of a story, whether it's a movie or a series, you know the damn characters, right? You know that shit. But I'm going to save that for the second half of this conversation. Why anime works. First, this is why Requiem of a Dream didn't work. One other thing is Jared Leto's character. They alienate us from him in the very first scene, which is a huge mistake. Okay, so he gets no character development. They didn't know he's played by a douchebag. His douchebaggery, the actor, came later. Nothing you can do about that. If they become a douchebag later, it sinks the film. What the hell are you going to do? O.J. Simpson was in movies before all that shit happened. Retroactively, it's like, what are you going to do? There's nothing you can do about it. It's there. It's what it is. So that's not the problem. The problem is we see him being mean to his mother, who seems like a kindly old woman who loves him and just doesn't want him to be mean to her. We see that happening in the very first damn scene, and then so you hate him for the rest of the movie. You're starting off behind the 8 ball. You're in the hole. Do you start off blackjack owing the $20? Typically, you start off, you have money. The owing the bank comes later, right? They started the movie owing $20. The hell we do it? So it was a bad choice. Unless they wanted us to hate the character, which is entirely possible. You can sit the whole movie rooting against him. I don't know. I think it was a mistake. The character establishing moment is so important when we first are met with these characters. There's so much you can do with that. You can show them as weak, so when they do something strong and courageous later, oh my God, that's really awesome. You can show them as strong and then show that they're a coward later. Oh wow, what a subversion. You can introduce a villain that's really badass and then we're afraid of him for the rest of the movie. You introduce a character that's just awesome and kind, and so we're going to root for him for the whole movie. Or they start off as a shitheel and then they redeem themselves. That didn't happen here. Like, you start off as a shitheel, and then he does earnestly apologize to her later, and I believe he means it when he says it and does buy her a new TV. Is that redemption? No. Not to me. Maybe I just don't like the actor, which I don't. But, I don't know, man. Like, it didn't work for me. So, maybe don't start with the character being a shitheel. Just a possibility. That's another reason this movie didn't work. Now, apparently there was studio interference. And so, because I looked into the movie after I finished it. Apparently there's studio interference. But it sounds like the studio interference was about nudity. Apparently there was a bunch of nudity and explicit sex scenes, which I don't give a shit about anyway. You're just wasting my damn time. This apparently was the clean cut that I watched. Thank God. Because, it was short and sweet and got to the point we got the hell out of there. I didn't need another 10 minutes of this crap just so actors can grind against each other. Like, come on, man. Like, I don't give a shit. So, I don't think the studio interference made the movie worse. I think it's just, they can't hide behind that excuse. Typically, studio interference does make a movie worse. There's a few rare cases where it makes a movie better, where I think the studio was the one that fired Eric Stoltz from Back to the Future. I don't think it was a director. I think it was a studio. I could be wrong. If it was a studio, they made the right choice. Because I think they were looking at the dailies like, oh, nah, fam. Nah, this ain't working. Get that subbitch out of here. Bring in the real one, right? So, they can't hide behind that in this case. Like, your movie sucks and you're the reason why. You can't blame the studio. Now, there is one other thing that late in the movie really hurt my immersion. And I'm going to say this. Unreality is okay. Unrealistic shit happening is okay. Indiana Jones, going back to him. And I actually liked the fourth movie. There's a lot of haters. I haven't seen the fifth one, but I like the fourth one. There's a lot of haters out there. But him being in the nuke the fridge thing is bullshit. Just being in a lead fridge ain't gonna save your ass. You got nuked, man. The hell we doing here? It's bullshit. So that was crap. But other than the fact he's still alive, that didn't really affect the plot. So it's fine if it's some horse shit to be fun, some horse shit, and yes, him living, I guess, affects the plot, obviously, but nobody wants to see the movie be over in the first 20 minutes, so we're rooting for that not to happen. So it's okay. We will let some bullshit slide as long as it doesn't affect the plot in a direct way. In other words, you're a lazy writer and you're like, good enough. I'm going to be lazy. Let me sleep over here. Oh, give me my paycheck. I don't want to figure out any actual way this could actually happen. F you. Get me paid. I'm out of here. You know, the Krispy Kreme hot now sign just lit up, so I got to get out of here. Like, come on, man. You know, it's just, I despise lazy writing. So, in this case, there was an unrealistic ass scene. It was actually unrealistic for two reasons. I didn't even realize the first one. After I looked it up, they gave another reason. There's a scene where a doctor sees that a guy's a junkie, but his arm is really messed up really bad. Like, it looks horrible. Clearly he's a junkie. Clearly he's injecting the same spot over and over again. It's badly infected. And so he realizes it's a junkie. So he goes and calls the police. The police come and arrest the guy, right? Now, apparently just even calling the police if you know they're a junkie is a HIPAA violation. I didn't know that. I don't know shit about HIPAA. So that would never happen because it's a HIPAA violation. They would take away his medical license. Okay, number one. So that's already stupid. I didn't know that, but you do your research, right? What I find completely 100% unbelievable and complete total moose shit is they depicted in the movie. He saw the arm, which was the most horrific thing you've ever seen. Like, his infection starts here and goes all the way down to here. The whole thing was black and purple and red and just nasty. Unbelievably nasty. It was a horrible ass infection. The doctor sees that, calls the police come and they just take him to jail. That would never happen. A 5-year-old can tell you that would never happen. They cure what's wrong with you before they release you. How many times have we seen these scenes in movies where a guy gets injured in a police chase or he gets shot by the police? They don't show him in a jail cell with the open gaping wound bleeding out on the floor. Have you ever seen that? No. Their ass is in a hospital with a handcuff to the bed and a cop outside the door. The windows don't open. The bathroom goes nowhere. He ain't going nowhere. And then they will cure his ass. Then they take his ass to jail. Nobody in this world believes they take him straight to jail with this infection still looking like that. Give me a fucking break. There's no way in hell that would ever happen. It just completely threw me out of the movie. Look, I don't ask for much here. But come the fuck on, man. What are we doing here? Like, you know what I'm saying? It was just so stupid. It's because they wanted to have his arm get cut off because he goes to jail and the infection gets worse and worse and worse. And finally he falls out. They take him back to the hospital and then cut off his arm. Because they wanted him to have his arm cut off at the end. Just have it already be so bad that they have to cut his arm off before they take him to jail. What the hell? I mean, you know, that's an easy fix. If the writer wrote it that way, he's stupid. Now, apparently the novel was set in the 70s. I don't even think that would happen in the 70s. Now, maybe medical technology didn't exist where you could save the arm. So maybe even by the time he got to the hospital, nowadays I think it'd be fine. Maybe he gets to the hospital in the 70s. They had to cut his arm off. There's no way in hell he's going to jail with an unfixed arm. It's just not going to happen, man. Like, there's some shit. It'd be like, okay, let me climb up to the sun and eat the sun. You're talking, oh, well, it's unrealistic. It's just a metaphor. It's just a metaphor for drugs and stuff. You know, the point of movies isn't realism. I agree with you. I'm a filmmaker. I'm a writer. We're not shooting documentaries here. There is a line. If you cross the line, you lose suspension of disbelief, and then you lose the audience. And the audience doesn't give a shit what happens to your characters because you've already lost them because you wiped your ass on the audience's intelligence. Yeah, let me climb up and eat the sun. You could do that in a magic anime. These characters are so powerful, they're walking around, they're Super Saiyan. You don't see them walk up and eat the sun, do you? Because there's a line. They don't walk over to the moon. The moon is 93 miles away. Do you realize how long it takes to walk 93 miles? 93 million, sorry. I'm getting upset. So my scientific details fall by. You can walk 93 miles. I wouldn't want to. You ain't walking 93 million miles. So there is a line whether people want to admit it or not. Oh, ghosts exist in this universe, so why would they believe telling the future exists? You know, space travel exists, why would they believe time travel exists? Magic exists. Why wouldn't they believe in time travel? Like, because there's a line, moron. There's a line you don't want to cross. You have one, you can ask the audience of one thing. Believe one thing. Okay, hyperspace is real. We can take this wormhole and get over this other solar system in 2 hours. Don't ask me to also believe in ghosts. Don't ask me to also believe in magic. You've already burned your one ask because you've got hyperspace. You get one ask. Everything you ask after that, you start losing the audience. So this movie is already asking a lot from us. So it's just, they crossed the line to complete and total unbelievability. And this is right near the end of the movie, and apparently that last montage in the movie is pretty brutal. It's about 10 minutes, and every character is going to shit all at the same time. It's really horrific and depressing. I laughed my ass off the whole time because they lost me. They lost me. Because that's just so stupid. It would never happen, man. Put this shit in, what is the place that Dr. Doom runs? Latveria? Set it in Latveria then. Set it in an alternate universe where people don't give a shit. If we're doing that. And maybe it is an alternate universe. But establish that. Show that it's not McDonald's, it's McDougal's or something. Show it's a different world. Because in this world, that shit ain't ever happening, man. I don't care how bad the hospital is, how poor it is, how much of a junkie you are. They're not going to do that. I've been talking about it for 20 minutes. Let's get off that. I'm just saying, that's how much it bothered me. That's when they lost me forever, and I lost all engagement or care in the world for this stupid-ass movie. Because that shit's just really deeply stupid. Okay, so that's why Requiem for a Dream didn't work. Why does anime work? Okay? Like I said, sense of humor. You put a little bit of sense of humor in there, it gets you a long way. It makes characters endearing. It helps release the tension if it's kind of a bleak story. It's just entertaining. We're here to be entertained, man. We're not here to sit. Even crying can be entertaining. I was entertained by Demon Slayer. I did crawl in a corner and cry for a while after I turned the camera off. But, I was entertained. But I'm more entertained when I'm laughing. That's why I'm glad I had this comedic romp, Requiem of a Dream, right after this. It helped me bounce back from Demon Slayer. Like, Jesus Christ, man. Character development, flashbacks. They do it so well. Their commitment. Anime is, and it could be a cultural thing. We'll get to more of that later. But anime is committed to characterization. They care about the characters. Probably too much. Probably too many different characters. They should probably limit their focus a little more. But man, do they care about characters, especially Demon Slayer. I just watched the season 3 finale yesterday, so it's kind of on my mind. There were other anime out there, I promise you. But in that one, every secondary, tertiary, fourthary character out there gets a goddamn flashback. We had some woman, I ain't never seen her before in my life. Well, maybe a couple times. And she's badass Demon Slayer number 6 we've seen. There's so many of them. And she gets a goddamn flashback. After we just had a flashback from another random ass Demon Slayer 2 episodes before that. Can you give me a goddamn break, man? We don't need to know the backstory of every goddamn tree branch. The person who put the glue on the cardboard box that the sword comes in. We don't need his damn flashback. So they can do it too much. But at least they do it enough. Too much is still enough, you know that? Too much gravy, I still get enough gravy. If it's not enough gravy, I don't get enough gravy. Too much, I can just be, okay, I'll put this in the fridge and finish it later. Okay, really do that with flashbacks is not a perfect metaphor, but work with me here. That's what I'm saying. Too much is still enough. So, we got character backstories. They give a shit about character backstories. For most part, most of the motivations make sense. It's like, okay, his entire family was butchered and eaten in front of his eyes when he was 6 years old. So, he hates demons. You could just say, hey, demons kill people, so I don't need to be personally affected by this thing. I want to fight evil. Not everybody has to have a personal motivation. It's the whole thing where the thing going around. As a father of daughters, I'm horrified when women are treated badly. Well, I don't have any daughters and I'm still horrified. So, you don't have to have a personal tie to every goddamn thing you're horrified by or that you want to fight against. But, it is true. I would like to believe we live in a world, even the alternate universe world of Demon Slayer, that you're allowed to fight against the things that butchered your family. You're allowed to hate those things. So typically that's what happens, right? Like, this demon ate his entire family, packed whatever was left of him in a to-go box, and took that shit home and, watched the Emmys or whatever the hell they demons watch. Some horrific shit. The Oscars would be even more horrific. And finished off the to-go order of your family with a nice wine, right? So you're pissed. That's your backstory. So you hate demons, you fight demons now. Times 25, right? So we don't have to have it all, but we get enough so we actually care about these characters. And here's the thing. I complain there's 2 different ass demon slayers besides our protagonist in this 11 episode storyline. Just 11 episodes. That's all it was. 11 episodes. We get the backstories of 2 other ass demon slayers. But you know what? After we got those backstories, I cared about them. It works. I don't like it, but it works. They got the job done. So, like I said, for the last time, too much is still enough. Anime is unrealistic, obviously. Going back to that point, but they don't they use their one big ass very carefully. Okay, magic exists, but you have to be able to draw the magic symbol. Or you die and you get resurrected into a new world, and it's a fantasy world and it has different evolution than us, but that's the one big ass because you're reincarnated. Or these massive simulated human beings are going to eat you if you step outside the wall or whatever. Like, there's one big ask. Generally speaking, from what I've observed, the only anime that sucks is when they ask too many different things from you. And it all falls apart because it's unrealistic. The good anime don't do that. And more importantly, from what I was talking about before, the plot doesn't hinge on the lack of realism. So maybe it's unrealistic that you would have 12-year-olds leading your army and 12-year-olds, running your mech suits and flying your ships. Maybe that's unrealistic. But the plot doesn't hinge on it. You could easily, first of all, they don't beat you over the head with the age. It's stated maybe once. So you could just age them up in your head if you wanted to. And really, that's the whole premise. That's the one, maybe that's the one big ask, aliens, but then, these people have this special gene in them that they're the only ones that can operate the machinery or whatever. It's a little unrealistic. Sometimes it throws me out of it a little bit and I question it, but then you get right back into it because the plot doesn't hinge on it. For instance, the plot hinged on that hospital sending him to jail without fixing his arm. Because they wanted to cut his arm off. And you can't cut his arm off, let they do that. That hinges on the plot. Or some unrealistic thing where it's like, maybe CPS doesn't get involved, which in case you don't know is Child Protective Services if you're from another country. They would get involved if you're trying to put your 12-year-old as the sheriff of your town, right? Like if some town in Alabama, which could probably happen because, I like making fun of Alabama. They could probably put a 12-year-old. I read a book one time when I was growing up. I really liked the book. It was Mayor for a Day. Somebody could win a contest. You're mayor for the day. It's just a ceremonial thing. You couldn't actually do anything, right? You had no real power. But this kid became mayor for a day, and he actually helped. Like there was this one part of town that had needed a sign, and they wouldn't put a sign up, so he hand drew a sign and had one of his buddies go over and put it up. And he tried to get shit done. He wanted to actually get shit done rather than just enjoy being mayor for a day, taking over the office for a day. Then he also found out there was corruption and, he got the actual mayor fired. I love that story. But that's about as far as you're going to take it. Your 12-year-old ass is going to be mayor for a day in a ceremonial position. And that's about it. But you're not going to be sheriff of a town in the United States in 2026 as a effing 12-year-old. So they're not asking us to believe that shit. It's like if the aliens have come, if the Russians have invaded the United States and the Russians have reached the Mississippi River, then maybe your only recourse in Arizona is to put a 12-year-old in charge of your army. Like maybe that's what you got going on. That there's a lot less resistance to that if the Russians are at the goddamn Mississippi River, or the aliens have invaded and they've taken over the top 50 biggest cities. Yeah, what the hell? What the hell do we have to lose? We're going to die anyway. Give the 12-year-old the job. So there could be some ridiculous premises, but the plot doesn't hinge on. I'm trying to think of a case where a plot that I can remember in anime where a plot hinged on something being super unrealistic. Like, okay, let's say it's a school situation and the plot hinges on these bullies terrorizing the students. And so every day they throw one of the students off the top of it's a 3-story school building. Every day they throw one student head first off the building. And so they're killing a student every day. Anime would never expect you to believe that a week of this shit somebody hasn't intervened. The police and the military would be there. And Japan doesn't even have a military. Like, they would shut that shit down. And anime never asked you to believe that. They never asked you to believe that. That's just unrealistic. This thing I'm talking about, the arm in the hospital. Like, we're going to murder, very dramatically and publicly murder a student every single day. And also, that 7th day, there will still be students going to the school. And the authorities haven't shut this down. These bullies can just do whatever the hell they want. They never try to get you to believe some bullshit like that. That the plot requires that to happen for the plot to work, right? Like, they don't do that. They'll have, like, possessed, cursed objects and Jujutsu Kaisen, and, it takes over a whole city or whatever. But it's magic, right? It's you've already bought it. You've either bought into the magic or you haven't bought into the magic. And so it's magic. So the magic is affecting people, and regular people don't really see the demons, and they're kind of in a haze, brain fog, and they're just kind of stumbling around. They're not really perceiving shit. You buy it. The writers aren't lazy. See, that's the difference between the writer of Requiem for a Dream and a writer of most of these animes, the good ones at least. They're not lazy. They put the work in. They're grinding, man. They're not lazy. So, they don't require the plot to hinge on their lazy ass just ignoring some obvious shit, right? So that's one reason anime works where, like, a lot of things don't work. Just another brick in the wall that I'm building here. And here's that thing, at the end of the day, anime doesn't feel manipulative. Now, I've talked about this many times. Writing is manipulation. All writing is manipulation. All storytelling is manipulation. Even the stories we tell each other. I told you some backstory. Stepfathers would scream at me. They call me awful things. You know what I didn't tell you? And what I probably don't remember? Is what the hell I did to deserve that. Now, deserve is doing a lot of work here. A 10-year-old doesn't deserve to be screamed at and called awful things by a grown-ass adult, no matter what the hell he did. But do I believe in every situation I'm sitting over in a corner, quiet, not causing any trouble, not doing anything, and he just comes in from another room and starts screaming at me and calling me names? Probably not. Maybe I was running through the house. Maybe I loudly plopped down on a chair. Again, these aren't capital offenses, I'm just saying. I did something, probably, that maybe I could have avoided doing. It is a true story in my childhood that I got beat up a lot less often than my two brothers. My younger brother had some learning disabilities, so he would get picked on a lot for that. He was dyslexic, among other things. And my older brother, just an asshole. Like, he's just a royal asshole, so he would cause a lot of shit. And I would keep my head down. And I got less abuse of the three of us. I got the least amount of abuse. Because I would keep my head down, I'd be smart. I would control my emotions, control what I did, play by whatever the hell the rules were, whatever bizarre shit they would put down. But yeah, every now and then I show my ass. So there's two sides to every story. So I tell a story about my childhood that gives me maximum pity. Hey, feel empathy, feel bad for me, or, I'm not really trying to do that, but I'm just saying, like, I didn't talk about maybe I opened up the refrigerator and dumped all the juice out on the floor. Like, I don't think I did that, but, like, if I did that and I got my ass beat, you'd feel a lot less sympathetic. Even though a grown-ass man shouldn't beat a 10-year-old's ass, right? Still, if you hear that I had taken all the juice and poured it on the floor, you'd be like, okay, well, maybe you shouldn't have done it, but I understand. Maybe you should be smacked across the room. No, but, but I did put the juice on. So what I'm saying is, when we tell each other stories, maybe we leave out that one piece that was our fault. So that there's maximum sympathy for us and maximum hatred towards the villain of the story, right? It's what we do. That's manipulation. You come home and your boss treated you like shit. Do you tell your spouse that you were 3 minutes late, that you had a shitty look on your face, and that you didn't take off your raincoat in the lobby. You brought it into the office, and now the damn carpet's wet. And that maybe you microwave fish for lunch. No, you don't tell your spouse none of that shit. And should you be treated like shit by your boss because you did those things? No. But you still leave those things out so you get maximum sympathy and your boss gets maximum vilification. When you go home and you tell a story, everybody who tells a story is some form of manipulation. Okay, maybe it's not your story. Maybe it's your friend's story. So then you're telling your spouse about your friend, and maybe you're a little jealous of the friend, so you talk about how she got the carpet wet and it got cussed out by the boss. So she did something wrong, and she gets cussed out by the boss. You didn't do anything wrong, and you get cussed out by the boss. Well, then she deserved, like maybe you have an axe to grind against somebody. So you tell their story that's not really personal to you, but you still have an axe to grind, so that you're going to slant it in some way. Maybe it's a cause you believe in. Maybe there's a homeless kid in your neighborhood, and he steals everything in sight. Anything that's not tied down, he is stealing. But you don't really focus on that when you tell his story, talking about how we should have homeless people in this neighborhood. The government should take care of everybody. I agree. But this sumbitch is stealing everything in sight, man. I can't leave anything in my yard. It gets stolen. Bastard. So we don't talk about that because we were sympathetic to the cause. Children shouldn't be homeless under any circumstances. So we don't talk about how he's a thieving little shit. We slant our stories. It's what we do. Every storyteller. On a personal one-on-one basis. In a job interview, we're slanting our stories. On a first date, we're slanting our stories. We talk about how we first met our spouse 20 years ago. We don't talk about his breast stank. We don't talk about her hair was shit or whatever. Maybe we do if it's funny and pertaining to the story. Maybe we don't talk about the fact we were still in a relationship with somebody else when we met him. We hadn't broken it off yet. We meet him, sparks are flying, we go home and we dump that other loser. We don't talk about it. We conveniently forget the fact we were technically still in a relationship. Yes, we immediately dump that ass when we meet this other person, but in the moment of the meeting, we were still contractually obligated to that other person. She'll be, I'll get right back to you. I need to go call this son of a bitch and dump his ass before I can have a conversation with you and start getting feelings for you. We don't do that. Finish lunch, go home, and then dump that loser, right? 20 years later, 20 years successful marriage, do we bring up the fact that we were technically contractually obligated? No, hell no we don't. Storytelling is manipulation. It's what it is. Now let's get to professional storytelling. Boy, we're manipulating that ass. We want you to hate this character. We want you to like this character. We want you to not realize that's the murderer. So we're going to manipulate you. We're going to lie to you. Here, nothing up my sleeve while I'm stealing the wallet out of your pocket, metaphorically, fictionally. You're paying attention to Bozo the Clown, the Buggy the Clown's dumbass. His little parts are coming off. You're paying attention to that shit. You don't see that we're setting that Blackbeard back here. The real villain. That's the hand stealing your wallet, right? This is the sleight of hand. We do it all the time in storytelling. Storytelling is manipulation. The only thing that matters is how good you are at hiding manipulation. And when you're a writer, some of the reasons I can sometimes predict shit that's coming is because I understand the game. I'm a con man just like every other writer out there. All writers are con men. Chip off the old block. Brother's a con man stealing money. I'm a con man stealing attention. Stealing your eyes from looking at this over here when you should be looking over here. Right? It's all con. That's not my sleeve. The Detroit double handshake, whatever scam they call it, right? It's just the writing version of it. We are manipulators. We're trying to trick you. We're trying to make you feel bad for this character and feel happy that this character just got his goddamn head cut off. F that dude, man. Yes! Finally cut that sumbitch's head off. Why? Why was I like this excited during Demon Slayer? Because I got manipulated by the writers. Because fuck that dude, man. He really pissed me off. He ate my friend. My little friend, this fictional character I'd fallen in love with. He ate that so much I made him cry. He's sitting there, he's trying to hone his sword. and you're throwing shit at him, poking his eye out, scratching his face up, slapping him around, piss me off. So yes, I get excited when you cut his goddamn head off 2 episodes longer than I wanted it to be before it finally happens. Boy, they took their goddamn time. Manipulation. Writing is manipulation. That is all it is. You pull back the curtain, that's all that's happening, man. You're being tricked. You're being guided to feeling this way or that way. The good stories, the good writers, you never see it happen. You don't feel the hand on your head. Look over here. Don't look over there. No. The good shit's happening over there that we'll explain later. Look over here. Manipulation. That's what writing is. So, having said all that, why is it so much more obvious we're being manipulated when it's done poorly, like live action? You know, we're contrasting why anime works and why sometimes live action doesn't work. You know, I think it's just because... Now, there is another component here I haven't even gotten into, which may answer my question. Most films, live action films specifically, because the production time is different, the production schedule is different than like an animation movie. The animation movie takes 4 years, you have plenty of time to tweak the script, right? But live action, and I'm talking about a competent, sane, functional way to do a script. I'm not talking about Olympus Is Falling, where they have 60 pages written out of a 90-page script and they don't know what the ending is and they have all these set pieces they're going to do, but they write it as they go. I'm not talking about that shitty-ass way Hollywood does scripts. Blows my mind. I would never work. This is why I would never work in Hollywood. You could make $80,000 on your first script. 2 months' work, make $80,000. I would love the money. I can't do the Hollywood thing. I can't. Let's go ahead and start shooting. We haven't finished the script. We don't know what the hell the ending is going to be. We don't know what the hell the movie is going to be, but we've got a few pages, so let's start shooting. The hell is that, man? I can't do that. But I'm talking about a real script. A script that's actually finished before you start shooting the movie, which is the way you're supposed to do filmmaking. They only have a few weeks to work on those scripts, typically, if they finish. To even have it be finished before you start shooting is a miracle. So they don't have the time to really refine it. Do pass after pass after pass. Anime, first of all, they do a couple drafts as they write the manga, right? Okay, they may even run a few things past their publisher. I think some of them do. So the publisher has a little bit to say about it. So they have a little bit of a quality control thing there. Then they're writing the script for the manga, okay? And he's drawing it, so he has plenty of time to think about what he's doing. And so then he puts it out there, and then he's working on the next script. Now, it's kind of the schedules can be kind of hard. So you're kind of under the gun, so maybe you can mess some things up. But the anime is an adaptation. Typically, the manga artist is involved. The manga writer is involved with the at least notes. Attack on Titan comes to mind, but there's plenty of cases where the manga writer was like, look, I wish I'd done this, and this better. Do that for the anime, and they do that for the anime. So the anime is a second draft after they get crowd feedback. The manga comes out, the crowd loves this, the crowd hates that. The writer changed his mind, maybe he retconned something. I've even heard of them finishing. Maybe they didn't finish this issue. They go back and finish it for the trade paperback. So then that's a second version. Trade paperback is a second version of the manga. And then the third version is the anime. So, and the anime has a team of writers and, directors and shit. So, there's a lot of revision and thought that goes into this shit. So there's just more time. The more time a writer has, the better the product is going to be. So there's a defter hand. They have a deft hand. When, they have time to work out the best way to manipulate you without you seeing it, unlike films. Who knows? Requiem for a Dream now was an adaptation from a novel, so it should have been more refined than your typical Hollywood movie. And boy, the writing was the weakest part, the big weak part of the movie. The writing sucked ass, which means the novel probably sucks ass. But they adapted and they didn't improve it, clearly. So that's just another sin that they committed. But I think one reason anime is just better at hiding the manipulation is because they have crowdsourced feedback that they can apply to the anime. Now, sometimes they don't, but I've heard My Hero Academia the anime got improved from the manga because of crowd feedback. And I heard that Attack on Titan got improved from the manga because of crowd feedback. So, especially the endings. So, I think that that's one reason that's just baked in why anime works better in most cases. You don't see the manipulations, obviously. Now, there is another interesting wrinkle to this. Anime doesn't have the problem of actor baggage. Of course, they also don't have the benefit of actor charisma. So it's a double-edged sword. But, like, for instance, I hate Jared Leto. Retroactively, because even back when he did this movie, nobody hated him because he hadn't done all this stupid shit. Ezra Miller is another example. Maybe there's just an actor you don't like their politics. Or there's an actor who is sexist. Sean Connery is infamously sexist. He talks about you got to slap a woman. I can't do an Irish brogue, but you have to slap a woman to keep her in hand, or whatever he said. To keep her in line. You got to punish, discipline. I think discipline might have been the word. You have to discipline the woman you're with every now and then. I'm going to stop trying to be a Scottish. Shitty. John Wayne, infamous racist. Shitty. Tom Cruise, couch-jumping cult moron. Shitty. Of course, his charisma is off the charts, man. I know he's a couch-jumping cult moron. I don't hate him. I know I've heard stories, behind-the-scenes stories from people who've worked with him as extras. They were an extra on one of his movies that they shot in the South somewhere, and then would come and do my movie, and they could be a main player in my movie, but they were just an extra in that movie, right? And he had it required in his contract that there would be a Scientology tent set up at every film set he would be at. And then he would go around and he would talk to the extras, put his arm around and be all friendly with them. This literally happened to two different people I talked about who didn't know each other. So I heard this story separately from two different people. So that convinces me it's true. Put his arm around, glad hand him, walk him over to the tent and let them start talking to a Scientology recruiter, and then he would leave. He's recruiting. Shitty. That's a shitty thing to do. You're using your fame to bedazzle the starstruck extras. You don't care about them. You just want to drive up the numbers, recruitment numbers. That's all you're doing. Shitty, right? But goddamn, he got so much charisma, and I love his work ethic, and I love how much he cares about the acting, and he commits. It's really hard for me to dislike him, but probably less hard for other people. So this baggage, right? Like, you have baggage. There's a reason, whatever the reason is, that you don't like an actor. Maybe they had an ugly divorce and they were shitting on the bed or whatever. They came out in court. Whoever the hell that was. Jesus. Wow, what a way to express your disapproval of somebody you're breaking up with. Damn. But, so you don't like them for whatever reason. That's baggage they carry with them from world to world. And then there's also another kind of baggage, which is, John Locke. I do it all the time. I really don't like that I do it. I think it detracts from my reactions, and it probably detracts from I can't appreciate the new product because I'm worried about something else they did. The normies are also really bad about this. So I can't criticize them without criticizing myself because I do it. But it's a valid criticism. Don't do that. Try to be in the moment. But it's hard, man. It's hard to be enjoying. I'm going to tell you a good example. I watched a little Miss Sunshine recently. Bryan Cranston had a 60-second role. And Dean Norris had a 60-second role. Maybe his was 90 seconds. Collectively, they had less than 3 minutes of screen time in two separate scenes. And I talked about them for about 20 minutes. Man, it detracted from the filmmaking experience. It detracted from my viewing experience. It detracted from my reactions. Who gives a shit? Bryan Cranston wasn't big. He had a small role. Move on. But that's the baggage you carry, right? It sucks you out of the movie because Bryan Cranston, he's some minor character. It's only 60 seconds. He's being a shithead to the main protagonist. I don't experience that as, look at this asshole being a shithead to a main character because he's Bryan effing Cranston. So actor baggage can also be a positive thing even though it's negative to the viewing experience. It's not because he's a bad person, because he's so good, and you loved him in this other thing. So, but it still detracts from the viewing experience because he's a living, breathing human being who has done other shit. Baggage, right? Anime doesn't have that baggage. And, especially for me, because I'm terrible at recognizing voices. But I know, like, Ariel will watch something and be, okay, I remember that person from this, and they did this, and they did this, and they were really good in this, and I love them from Apothecary Diaries, and they were also this funny narrator in Love is War, and, those. I don't know, and I would love to hear if she sees this. Let me know if that takes you out of the experience. Like, if you're watching an anime, and then you recognize a voice, does it distract you? Do you have to go back and rewind the scene to listen to what the hell the dialogue was? Does it make you like a character you're not supposed to like? Does it make you hate a character you're supposed to like? Does it make a character stand out when they're not supposed to stand out? Does it alter your viewing experience to recognize a voice actor? I don't think it would for me. I mean, I do Batman and Superman reactions, and there have been a few times where I've been distracted by the voice actor. But I tell you what, stack those up against my live action reactions when I recognize an actor, you're going to see a marked difference. It's much worse when I recognize an actor's face, because that's typically instantaneous. Bryan Cranston may do a voice in Superman, but I won't be 100% sure until I get to the end of the episode. I see his face, I'm immediately distracted. So, I think one thing benefit that anime has is they don't have the baggage of the actors the way live action does. So, it helps immersion. It helps you stay focused on the story. It helps you stay connected with the story on the merits of the actual story they are telling, not they're bringing in goodwill from a different show that was better. The only reason I watched 2 seasons of the shitty ass Under the Dome is because Dean Norris was in it, and I also like Britt Robinson. And F that show, I'll say this, they kill off Britt Robinson at the end of the first season. So, I don't care about spoilers. That show blows. Don't watch it. So, the only reason I got through the second season was I like Dean Norris. That's the only thing, a better show. So, I guess that, they got me there. That's why they do stunt casting sometimes. Because they know they can get you to watch more of their crap than you otherwise would. Anime doesn't have the baggage of the actors because it's strong, right? But they also don't get the charisma of the actors, so I think it can be a detriment sometimes. Although even that gets warped. People love Damon on Vampire Diaries and they love Spike on Buffy, and those are 2 horrible ass serial killing R-word assed horrible monsters, both of them. Mind bending, like they're basically mental roofie the people, man, compelling them to do shit, and just Damon is one of the worst, objectively worst, not worst written, objectively foul, objectively evil characters I have ever seen that fans love. Fans love, ooh, marry me, Damon. Ooh, I love Damon. Oh, Damon, girl forever. They're shipping Damon with the main character, man, who, when the show started, wasn't evil. She was a nice person. She should be with a nice guy. They want this mass murdering psychopath, foul, evil monster to be with her. Why? Because, tells his name? Ian Rappaport? I don't think that's it. Whatever the hell, whatever the actor's name is. He's hot. He's charismatic. He's awesome. Apparently a real good guy in real life. A lot of charity work and shit. Then you got James Marsters. Slightly less horrible, but still really bad. Another charismatic, great guy. I've met him twice. Once at a film market and once at a Dragon Con. Very different experiences because you come at him as a fan, you're going to get one side. You come at him as a filmmaker, you get a difference. Even an indie filmmaker. He had a lot of respect for indie filmmakers. So I just had like one elevator ride with him. But he came across really nice both times. So, and then I've only ever heard nice things about James Marsters. Horrible ass character. A lot of charisma. Charisma just oozing off of him, right? Just funny guy, clever. You really like him. Plays a horrible character. So that's the nexus, the black hole effect. The character is intended to be vile. And you're not intended to root for them. But the actor is so goddamn good and so charismatic and so lovable that people do. So that destroys the intention of the narrative. So here the thing is, the problem here is that anime doesn't have to deal with that. Now, sometimes if you need charisma to carry you through the slow part of the early part of the story, in live action, you've got a good actor. You've got that wired. You don't have to worry about it. We'll watch Damon, whatever the hell the actor's name is, or James Marsters for 30 minutes of a 90-minute movie that is slow until things start to pick up. I saw a movie. It's a British movie about four guys that go back and try to do a beer pub crawl, whatever they call it. And the first hour of the movie was one thing, and it was kind of slow. It was a little bit entertaining, but the charisma of the actors and their chemistry with each other was the only thing that was carrying me through. And then there was a turn halfway through the movie. It's like, holy shit, what the hell is this? That was crazy. And then the plot drove the rest of the movie. It was really awesome. But you don't get to that point. People stop watching before you get to that point if you don't have charismatic actors. I don't know how an anime would do that. You know, maybe you have a little bit more patience with anime, but I think you got to start things earlier in anime because you don't have charisma of actors, live actors, to carry you through. I don't think a voiceover actor is good enough. Nobody's trying to hear, ooh, I like that vocal performance this guy did in this other thing, so I'll stick with this anime I'm bored with. Nobody's going to do that. You may stick with something if you're watching it. And you carry the charisma, oh, this is a good actor. At least I can see a good performance. A good performance in a shitty movie can kind of save the movie for me. So you'll stick with it. So it's a double-edged sword, but really a triple-edged sword. Because you have two potential negatives that you don't have to worry about and one potential positive that you can't use as a crutch. So really a triple-edged sword. The two things are you don't have to worry about negative baggage and you don't have to worry about the positive baggage warping the whole story out of the intention, but then you don't get the third side of the sword is you don't get the charisma to carry you through the slow part. Now here's another thing too, along the same line. To get a good acting performance in a movie, a live action movie, you need a good actor. Obviously. I'm not breaking any news here, but think about this. To get a good acting performance in an anime, you just need a good animator. Now, what is the ratio of good animators for good actors? It might be 100 to 1. It might be 100 to 1. There may be 100 good animators for every good actor. There might be 10 great animators for every great actor. Now, there's also the vocal performance, but Japan has a deep roster, and so does the United States or England or whatever, English speaking. The English speakers have a deep roster. If they have the money, they're going to get good vocal performances, and the money is a hell of a lot less than required in live action. So, yes, I mean, the vocal performance will add to it, but the facial expressions, the acting on the face, the looks of the faces, they just need a good animator. Those are much more common than good actors. And the actor has to understand the intentionality of every single moment. And you can't direct every single moment of a performance. You can direct a vibe and then shoot it 4 times and hope you get a good take. With animation, they have complete control. Wait a minute, this half second here, he looks too quizzical. I want him to look a little more scared. All right, let's raise this eyebrow. Let's tweak this cheek and do something with this lip. Perfect. You can fine-tune that shit. You have 9 months or whatever. So, getting a good performance in anime is easier than getting a good performance in live action. So, they should be able to do it. So if they can't do that, if they can't convey what's happening with the characters' faces, it's just a shitty anime and the director and producers are shitty. Because you can do that. So, it's easier to go back to audience manipulation because character expressions is what manipulates the audience in the first place. Scared, ooh, look, quizzical, yeah. It's all there. So you can do that pretty much as a standard in anime. I can't think of any anime that has any money that couldn't get some good animators. Because I've been seeing, maybe of course I only watch the best anime. There's a lot of anime out there I don't watch because the shitty anime doesn't get recommended to me. So it's possible. But I think one reason why anime works is because finding good animators is a hell of a lot easier than finding good actors. One final point I want to make here. Question, more of a question than a statement. All the rest of this has been statements. These are my authoritative opinions. But now we come to a question. And there are different people with other cultures. I know there's at least one person living in England. I know there's one person living in Hawaii, but comes from a Japanese background. I don't know if there are people actually currently living in Japan who have lived in Japan all their lives, who are Japanese, who watch my shit. I'm not clear on that. It's possible. Probably. But I don't know that for sure. So speak up. Because here's my last point. Do you think the fact that anime is from another culture helps immersion? In other words, is it harder for a Japanese person to become immersed in Japanese anime because they're used to the culture, and maybe there's things that they do culturally in the anime that is not realistic? I watch an American movie, I can tell you they ain't sending his ass to jail where he can get his arm cut off. They're going to fix him first. I know this because I'm American. So I just innately know this. Or I know that, you don't have vending machines every 6 feet in America. Apparently you do in Japan. So if they were an American movie were to show somebody go to a gas station and there's a vending machine there selling iPods and underwear, I'm going to call bullshit. So that hurts my immersion. Whereas if it's a Japanese anime or movie, and I don't know, what is something that would never happen in Japan? I guess I don't know the culture enough. But say there's just something culture would just never happen. Like, it would just never happen, right? And they depict that, you're going to be like, I call bullshit, so you're not going to be immersed. So maybe that happens in anime. I don't know. I'm not Japanese. But I wonder, Americans and British, and I think there's some Germans who watch this, at least one person from Brazil. You people, not living in Japan, do you find the fact that it's Japanese as a different culture, does that help your immersion? Do you just go with the flow of everything? You're not calling bullshit because you don't know, because you're not Japanese. You just go with the flow and you just immediately get sucked in. Maybe it's harder for a Japanese person to get sucked in. Where I don't get immediately sucked into American movies because I'm used to American culture, right? Well, I think we write off anything goofy as they're just another culture. They have vending machines that sell underwear? Japanese, I guess. They go to the roof of their school and hang out on the rooftop of their school. Well, they're Japanese, so okay. They wrap a napkin around their lunch boxes. And they have it like all tied up and shit. That's just how they carry their lunch, is a box inside of a napkin. They're Japanese? Okay. They carry a sword to school? Maybe that would be, because I know that's bullshit, right? But I'm an American. They carry a sword to school? Okay, they're Japanese. So, you know what I mean? I guess. So, I think that the fact it's a different culture helps you with immersion. That's what I believe. But, what do you think? Let me know what you think about all this. This is what I wanted to talk about. Like I said, this is just how I operate. Yesterday I had no topic. Today I talked for over an hour. So, this is how it goes. But I'll try to do a second podcast this month. Podcast out of time at least. So the old podcast out of time will just get dropped. We'll see how it goes. I'm going to have a bunch of mini pods, like I said. So go ahead and check out that. And I guess we'll just go to the Q&A now. So, all right, here we go with the Q&A. And we're going to start with Ariel. For the Black Clover rant. Don't think it was a rant. I don't really remember what the hell I was talking about. Maybe she'll tell me. I agree with your take on it, but I think in Black Clover it's just used as a way to paint the Diamond Kingdom as currently, this is, okay. It was a rant. I take it back. Yeah, that was a rant. I remember that. As currently having leadership that's unethical and probably not the brightest. Not sure, but maybe that's also the point where the winner is the only one who lives. Storyline is used in some other shows, movies, etc. Yeah, I think you're probably right. Somebody else pushed back on this. I think it may have been in the actual episode reactions that I didn't have a clear picture of what was happening. I can't remember the actual comment. I'll see if I run across it. It may be here. So I'll see if it's here. We move on to Hunter Stone. I'm only 28 episodes in, and Gintaka and Kaguya's relationship is definitely weird. Yeah. I know they live together, but they seem like distant siblings with Gintaka as an older brother. But I do mostly just see them as friends. Yeah, I'm not sure how she sees him. What is very funny, though, is the fact, and they also do this in Bleach. So that's two examples. But I don't know if they do it in Gintaka because they do it in Bleach. But I wonder if this is something that could be culturally appropriate in Japan. She sleeps in a closet. Like, he sleeps in the living room, or it's an office, right? So they don't even have a bedroom, right? But he sleeps in one, maybe it's the lobby, or maybe it's just the office. And then she sleeps in a closet where you slide the door closed, right? So, and somehow the dog's in there too. That I don't believe that for a second. That dog is big as hell. But it does give them a little distance. Like, they don't sleep in the same room side by side in like separate mats. You know, which they might as well, because they basically sleep in the same room, but there is that door that closes. So I think it's intentional. The door being closed intentionally puts distance. So first of all, some people should never ship these two. Hopefully they don't. Rule 34, I won't look, but hopefully they don't ship these two, you sick bastards. But it kind of helps that not happen, right? Although siblings sleep in the same bed. I used to bathe with my sibling when I was like 5 and 6 and whatever. So, we would take a bath together because we're trying to save hot water. So it doesn't matter. And then there's the sleep in the same bed and shit. So, but they don't have a familiar relationship, right? So I don't know if she sees him as a father, an older brother. Does she respect him? Because here's the thing. You can love somebody, protect somebody, and not respect them, right? Is there respect? There seems to be respect because she seems to take what he says on faith. He'll get drunk and tell her some bullshit and she'll believe it. So she seems to respect him. But I'm now 209 episodes in and I still don't know what the relationship is. So I kind of like this ambivalent. I like this weird. And we don't really got a handle on it. Of course, I'm somebody who doesn't feel like relationships should be defined anyway. So, I kind of like to live in the mystery. So, there is that. But I like that it's ambiguous. It's not a stupid thing for them to say because it's an actual issue. A lot of adults think animation is only for children, and the animation industry gets disrespected because of that. Similar to anime. My dad will never watch it because it seems targeted to younger people, and he thinks he won't like it. I don't understand what you're saying. It's not a stupid thing to say because it's an actual issue. Well, it's an actual issue because people say that stupid thing, right? Like, it is a stupid thing to say because animation is a medium, it's not a genre. And I explained this last time, right? So it's for somebody to say that animation is a genre or that animation is just for kids is stupid. On the face of it, it's objectively stupid because it's not true. Now, unless you're saying that they're lying, I assume they're too stupid to understand that what they're saying is not true. The only way it's not stupid is if they're lying. Like they know the truth and they're just lying. Because they're saying animation is only for kids. That is objectively false. So either they're lying or they're stupid. Those are the only two possibilities. So which is it? I guess that each person determines that. I don't know what the motivation would be to lie about it, though. So they're probably just stupid. I made a prediction on your rankings in the poll asking which pilot you would like the most. I got pretty close. I said One Punch Man, Beastars, Reincarnated a Slime, and Classroom of the Elite. That was pretty close. I've continued to watch One Punch Man and Beastars, and I really like the character of One Punch Man. I think I'll do a corner on that because actually haven't recorded the other quarters yet. Let me make a note of that now. You'll have already seen it, of course. This is Power of Death. Would you be interested in doing something similar again once you are done with Beastars? I really enjoyed having you react to different pilots, and I think the hardest part is we didn't get to see the series you didn't pick to react. Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. That was a lot of fun. 4 pilots walk in, 1 pilot walks out, right? Thunderdome. I'm very into competition. I love contests. I love competition. I love 4 enter, 1 leaves. Like, I love that shit. That's why I'm into sports. So if we can bring that dynamic into my job, anytime we can do that, which is why I was running contests back in the day. Anytime we can bring competition into my job is a good day for me. That's why I love the Oscar contest I do with Eric. I love contests. This is Kez Kinney. Woohoo! This is all cash, by the way. I'm not going to shout, though. I've been talking a lot this morning, and it's only the morning I need to conserve my voice. Woohoo! Looking forward to Love is War mini-pod. Still hasn't happened as of I record this. I've got an angle. I just need the time to do a little... I'm going to have to rewatch a couple episodes. But it's basically going to be about the minion, Hisoka, I think her name is. It's going to be a deep dive on her character, but I need to rewatch key episodes to be able to do that. So, that's the topic. It'd probably be something I do in June. So, to be continued. Alright, Hunter Stone again. Do you not conflate the world government and IMU? The world government makes IMU more interesting, and IMU makes the world government more interesting. I commented that the world government was my second favorite villain, and IMU added to that interest. Do you find the world government to be an interesting villain? I don't separate them, because they're a tool. It's like saying, which is more important, the carpenter or the hammer? Well, I mean, the carpenter can't do his job without the hammer, but the hammer has no purpose without the carpenter. I think that's a pretty apt comparison, but I don't think the world government is evil without Emu. Now, they could still be obstructionists. They could be inefficient. They could, be a problem for our characters, but they still are basically just a tool that he uses. He deploys against the Straw Hats and everybody else. Let me ask you this. Do you think there has been any time any character on One Piece has clashed with the world government that the orders didn't come from Black Hoodie? Like, in other words, maybe Black Hoodie's like, I want you to crack down on piracy in the New World. And so then we're seeing more marine activity and they're cracking down on piracy. Do you think the order comes from Black Hoodie, or do you think it comes from the lead admiral, currently Lava Bitch? Before that was Birdhead. Do you think they're giving orders on that level that are directly affecting our characters? We don't know the answer to that question, but if Lava Bitch, for instance, is giving orders that directly affect our characters, then it is kind of a... And I know the Navy is also not the world government, but we're not really seeing the tax proposals issued by the world government affecting our characters. So the only arm of the government that we really interact with is the Marines. Like, we're not seeing you have to have an ID to buy food anymore. Then the world government said this, so that's now a problem for our characters that we have to deal with. We're not seeing that. So the only part of government that matters in this particular case is the military arm of the government, which is controlled by Lava Bitch currently. And so, is he enacting anything of his own free will that he doesn't run past Black Hoodie first? Is that happening? I don't know. But that's the answer to our question. Are they separate enough that they have independent effects on our characters, or does it all come from the top? Personally, I believe it all comes from the top, but we don't know yet. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. Other than theater plays, Is manga the only written media that gets full 100% adaptations? Well, I think now that we're starting to get TV adaptations of novels, we're starting to get 100% adaptations. Season one of The Leftovers was basically a full and complete adaptation of the first novel, the only novel. Handmaiden, I think, The Handmaid's Tale, whatever. I think season one was the first novel, maybe the only novel. Also, I think video games. Last of Us, the first season was a complete and total adaptation of the first video game. I think it's rare, but I think it can happen in other situations. I've just cited a few examples. And that is why the anime thing is a thing. How many novels get fully adapted to the screen? Novel adaptations are usually shorter than the source material, while anime adaptations are more fleshed out than the source material. Or should they not be compared because novels and manga are two different mediums? You know, it's interesting. I don't think it's an apples and oranges comparison. I think it's easier. Another way that it's easier to adapt manga and comic books, we can go ahead and say comic books too. For instance, Road to Perdition was a comic book that they adapted it to a movie. From what I've heard, is pretty faithful. That Johnny Depp, was it Johnny Depp or was it Leonardo DiCaprio? The one about Jack the Ripper was a comic book. I forget the name of the movie, but it was a comic book, and that was apparently a faithful adaptation. Wanted was not a faithful adaptation. The one with Kate Beckinsale that was up a murder mystery up in the Antarctic. Antarctic would be down here. It was either the Arctic or Antarctic. I can't remember. That was a pretty faithful adaptation. I watched the movie and read the comic book. That's one of the few I've done both of. I do think it's easier though because you can basically use a comic book as a storyboard. You know, you don't have to draw the storyboard. You basically have got it. Now you have to add to it, but you could just take a comic book, cut it up, and that's the very good start to your storyboards, right? So it's easier to match shots and stuff like that, matching tension specifically. One good example is like the Harry Potter books have been adapted into movies, and chapter art will literally depict like the egg in Goblet of Fire or the Goblet of Fire itself, or Gillyweed, also Goblet of Fire, but any of the books. House insignias, there's chapter art that shows what that's supposed to look like based on the novel, what's written in the novel. Then the movies, it'll look completely different. Even the effect of talking through fire in the fourth movie is depicted one way, and the fifth movie is depicted a different way. Both of those ways sucked, and neither one of them matched what was in the books. So they won't necessarily match the intention. It's harder to match the intention when you don't have a bunch of images. Chapter art's easy to skip past, and not everything is drawn out in chapter art. It's one drawing per chapter. So I think you can match intention better. And people read the words, they picture something in their mind, and then when they watch the movie won't match what's pictured in their mind unless they match the intention of the novel, right? So that helps break your immersion, which is not good. I also think that in Japan they just give a shit more. Honestly, just a general statement, a general stereotyping statement. In Japan, they care more about the adapting it faithfully. You know, I very rarely have I watched an anime where they're like, wow, they just didn't give a shit what the author wanted. A little bit of Naruto, a little bit of Boruto. I can't think of another example. Oh, maybe what was that series? What was that called? It was the boy was killed and brought back to life, and he fought spirits. It only had like 120 episodes or some shit. Hunter would know what I'm talking about. He watched it with me. Whatever the hell that was called. It seems like that show did not care about adapting the material faithfully. So that's an example. I can't think of many examples where they don't care. They care. They want to. And if you want to, you'll do it. Stanley Kubrick didn't give a shit about adapting The Shining faithfully. He didn't care. He didn't want to. Even the third Harry Potter movie, they brought in a new director. and I think he's the only one who directed only one movie because he didn't give a shit. He wanted all kinds of shit. He wanted miniature people running around. He wanted skeleton hands playing pianos and stuff. None of that shit was in the book. He had the head in the night bus, the shrunken head talking. Like, none of that shit was in the book. It's just the author, the director just wanted to do whatever the hell he wanted to do. He didn't want to adapt a faithful. He didn't want to do a faithful adaptation, man. So they don't care. So if you care, you do it. If you don't care, you don't do it. And I think whether you care in America is hit or miss. It depends on the director and how involved the writer is. Whether you care in Japan seems to be cultural. They just all seem to give a shit for the most part. So I think that's the big difference. They care. I don't think it actually has to do with the medium. I think if they're doing a movie adaptation, a live action movie adaptation, I've seen a little bit of the Gintama live action movie adaptation of what I've already seen in the anime, and it's beat for beat, it's the same story. They're faithful. They care. They just care about doing a faithful adaptation. They don't need to put their own stamp on it. It's not about their ego. In America, a lot of times it's about the director's ego. I want to do my thing. I want to pretend I'm adapting this, but I just want to tell my own story. I talked about The Leftovers. The first season of The Leftovers, they adapted the novel faithfully. Then, in the second season, they threw all that away, wiped their ass with it all, and told their own story. They didn't follow what was in the novel. They just went and told a new story. Basically, it's a soft reboot. So why the hell did you adapt the novel in the first place? You might as well just go ahead and do your own thing for all 3 seasons. Why adapt the novel faithfully and in the second season completely wipe your ass with all that and change the entire premise, blow up everything you did in season 1, and then do something new that you want to do for the last 18 episodes of the series? Why? Why do you think you got canceled after 3 seasons? Because you did that shit. It was dumb, man. You alienated anybody who liked season 1, including me. Like, so because it's about his ego, the guy from Lost, Damon Lindelof. It's about he's a raging egomaniac. Watch any interview. The man is a raging narcissist. So it's about his ego. He don't give a shit about adapting shit. So, that's what that is. So I don't think it is medium. I think it's whether or not they care. Ariel, I think what you talked about with Jujutsu Kaisen is why I'm not as into it as a lot of people seem to be. I don't really get into action that much if I'm not interested in or attached to the characters. And we barely know anything about Yuji. See, even the shows she don't like, she remembers all the names and how to spell them. Like, it's just amazing. Her mind's like a steel trap, man. I think his origins are probably part of what will eventually be unlocked to explain his story ability with Sukuna more, but we don't necessarily need to know who or what his parents are, family ties, origins, etc., to at least have more of a picture of his life up to this point, like in Black Clover. We don't know Asta and Yuno's parentage, but we do know who raised them, and that's important, and we've interacted with those characters. We've seen them. So we don't know the biological, but we know the people who are there to help raise them and what kind of people they are. And you say the same thing here. I should have let you finish. But we have pretty much a full picture of their lives leading up to their current ones as Magic Knights. I haven't gotten past episode 4 or 5 of the new season, but I'm pretty sure we know more about Megujuin, Naburo, Gojo, and even Panda, Maku, knows all these goddamn names of a show you don't like. Amazing. Just amazing. How do you do it, man? That's your superpower. And Maya, than we do about Yuji himself. He's got more personality, stands out more when he's Sukuna, even though most of us probably don't condone his disregard for human life. And, well, yeah, I would like to think we don't condone anything about that filthy, disgusting demon. If he is a demon. I think he's a demon. They could have a different name for him. It could just be a curse, but I think he's a demon. Yeah, none of us condone that filthy, disgusting, whatever he is. I would hope. My theory on why we don't know what particular aspirations Mao might have, is the world she is in is set up in a way that her career, goals, she might have are currently only attainable if you're a male. Yeah, that's fair. But you could still have aspirations. We've seen plenty of times Brave, any other Disney princess movie, even though they're not allowed to have aspirations, they're not allowed to want something for themselves, we still know what they want. We still know what they aspire to. We still have this information, right? Because they tell us in the song. But, they tell us. Even if they can't attain it. And there's been times you can't obtain a goal, but you still know what it is. Another one, what was the one, Mulan, where she wanted to be a fighter? There was no way in hell she should have ever been able to do that. Like, come on, right? But we would at least know that she wanted to do that. I do think it would be more interesting narratively if a character wants something and they don't get it throughout the entire course of the series. It would be interesting if Mulan wanted to be a fighter, but she found other ways to contribute to the war effort. And then never becomes a fighter and then realizes she didn't want to be a fighter after all, or she no longer wants to be a fighter. It was a foolish dream. They don't do that because it really cuts. Basically, you're saying she should stay in her gender role. That's a bad message, and I understand that. It's not a fun story. We want a story where nobody wants her to be a fighter, and then she's a fighter, and she's a badass. I get that. We want that. So, I'm just saying, I think, wouldn't it be interesting if she wanted something and didn't get it, or any of these characters wanted something and didn't get it? Hercules, in the movie Hercules, he wanted to be a god. He wanted to, first he wanted to find his parents, but then after he found his parents, he wanted to become a god so he could join his parents. And then he actually didn't do that. No, he did. Oh, no, he did do it. But he was able to bring his girlfriend with him, I think. But wouldn't it have been interesting if he never became a god? And he just stayed on Earth and never got what he wanted, but then he found something he wanted anyway, which is his girl. He falls in love. He helps people. He helps people down here on Earth as a human being. That could be his purpose, even though he wanted to become a god. Wouldn't that be interesting? You don't necessarily have to achieve your dream for it to be a satisfying story. Typically, you do achieve your dream because writers are kind of limited in their thinking, but I believe you could not achieve your dream and it still be a satisfying story, I believe. Females have far fewer options, and she's been shown to be status conscious and very aware of her place in society, though her curiosity and care for people around her, though she gaslights herself that she only looks out for herself, will overcome and push her to act even though she tells herself that she should not get involved. So what you seem to be saying here is that because she's so status conscious, she doesn't conjure up aspirations above her station. Makes sense to me. I mean, that is a valid reading of the text we've seen so far. I think relationships in general for her are tricky, like when asked by Jinshu why she should want to help Zolan. Jesus, these names are going to be the death of me. Even though she herself had nothing to do with that problem. She's been brought up to think everything is a transactional way because she grew up in a whorehouse, for the people who don't watch Apothecary Diaries. So she wasn't even in touch with her feelings enough to be able to say that Xylon is her friend. As far as love romance, the example of her biological parents is not a great one, valid. And growing up around brothels has not given her reason to believe that genuine love romance ever has a chance of working out. Boy, that is dark. Richard Pryor grew up in a brothel. He got married 7 times, so there's probably a connection. She might have romantic urges, but I think that if she does, she stifles them because, for her, there's no reason to believe that anything good would actually come of them. That's my take anyway. I could be wrong. There's another thing you need to think about. She's also seen the downside of pregnancy multiple times. Getting pregnant is bad, so I think she wouldn't even be interested in casual sex, which was not as common back then, especially if you're status conscious. But let's say she was ever tempted. And well, she does know ways to keep herself from getting pregnant, I guess. I mean, she could conjure that up herself in a pharmacy, right? Still, she probably knows that they don't really talk about STDs in the show, but she knows about that. She knows about the pregnancy danger. She knows that any of the remedies are not 100%, so she probably wouldn't even be in casual sex. So that's another wrinkle to this, I believe. Marakoye. I'd love to watch a Neon Genesis Evangeline rewatch. I'll put it on the list. It's about 75 projects behind everything else, but it's on the list. You've been yapping about Sophie Reacts so much for so long, I thought I should check her out, and I did. Yapping is a very offensive way to characterize what I do. That word is up there with moist to me. How can we reframe this? I have been evangelizing Sophie Reacts for so long. There we go. Even though evangelical people are douchebags, it shows you how much I hate the word yapping, that I would rather be associated with evangelical assholes than with the word yapping. Little tiny dogs yap. Little purse rats, right? The little 6-pound dog that some rich cocaine-addled socialite in New York City carries in her arm on her purse hand. She's got a purse down here. She's got the little yapping 6-pound dog here. It's been shampooed and manicured, and the fur has been shaped in a specific way. And all it does is yap at everybody. And it's super annoying. Small, tiny, manicured, well-kept, high energy, super annoying bullshit artists. That's what these little yapping dogs are. That's what I associate with the word yapping. So I'd rather be associated with evangelical douchebags. So I was looking through what she watched, and I saw she's currently reacting to Attack on Titan, so I might check that out after I finish watching her Avatar, The Last Airbender reactions. So far, she's really enjoying them, and her analysis made the reaction really enjoyable. I don't watch reactions to anime, ever, and I actually broke that rule this week. Mainly, I don't want to be infected with what other people think about anime. Also, I watch enough anime already, so I preferred... plus, I have, like, classics that I just love reactions to. Lost, Game of Thrones, Plurbius, Breaking Bad. I don't watch Better Call Saul reactions. Night of the Seven Kingdoms, Buffy, and Supernatural. Those are basically what I watch reactions to, and I just, anytime anybody does something in those fields, it's an automatic watch for me. And then I have certain milestones. Whenever I see a new Lost reaction channel, I go to episode 4. If I don't like how they react to episode 4, I don't watch anything else they do. And it'll be funny, too, because months ago, they did episode 4. I watched episode 4. It sucked. I hated the reaction. I don't watch them anymore. Then I'll get promoted them like 3 months later. I'll be like, ooh, a Lost reaction channel. Interesting. Let me go check them out because I don't remember them because it's been 3 months. Then I'll go to them, and I'll go to their playlist, and I'll go to episode 4, and the red bar will be across there showing that I've already watched it. I'm like, look, I only ever watched episode 4. Boom, I'm out. Now, I don't mute them because maybe they'll react to something else in the future, like Breaking Bad or whatever, and I'll give them another shot. So I don't mute them. So every now and then I get promoted the same shit again, right? And I don't remember it, and I'll go in and look and see that I've already seen it. But yeah, and for Buffy, I don't watch season 1 reactions except for the doll episode, the puppet episode, I should say. Then once they get in, so it takes a while. Anyway, point is, I don't watch reactions to anime because it'd be like a postman taking a walk on his day off. I kind of want to break from anime, and also I don't want to be polluted by their thoughts. But I did watch Sophie Reacts, her reaction to the first episode of Attack on Titan. And I guess she had never done anime before, so she spent a lot of the time just talking about anime and how it was different. It was interesting. It wasn't what she was expecting. She's going to love it. She loves character-driven stuff. And she's really analytical, and she can really get emotionally invested in this shit. And she did. I'll never have time to watch all of her Attack on Titan reactions. But I did take a taste, and it was pretty good. I think you'll like her reaction when you get to it. All right, this is Yakuma Blood. I don't understand Gintama Corner. Is it Shimpaki or Gintaki? I think I was talking about Gintaki. Also, I think you forgot the early episode of Kaguya, their first meet. Jen understood her and helping Sadara, the dog. Yeah, here's the thing, too, by the way, as you bring that up. It has been a while since I started this. I want to go back and rewatch the episode where they meet Kaguya. I wanted to do that anyway. I was thinking about that earlier this week. I'm probably going to. I'm actually a little behind on my early access, so I'm going to do a few extra episodes this week. So I probably won't have time this week. But I'll probably do it next week. Because I just want to see it again. I want to see it, and here you are with you kind of reaffirming this bias where it's like I probably should watch it again. To see that first connection, how they first got together. Because they've ran into so many people that they have not brought into their team and into their found family. So what was it that made her worthy of becoming part of their family? Because Shimpaki, I think, was standing up to the cat guy. And then Jintaki saved him from the cat guy, so they kind of formed a bond. Brothers in blood, kind of. In a way. So, by the way, the cat suit in the live action Gintama, oh, it was bad. It's just a guy in a cat suit. It doesn't work. I know they have a shitty Doctor Who budget. I understand that. But man, is it trash. It was terrible. It makes me, I'm a little scared to watch the rest of the movie. I will at some point. But they showed that scene where, like, he saved him from the cat guy. God, that costume was horrible. So I don't know, man. But yeah, I want to go back and rewatch that episode. I think maybe that will change my opinion. Jin understood her in helping Sadara. Also, when Jin lost his memories, there's a line of her keep believing in Jintaka, her father arc. Father arc. I mean, like I said, though, she has shown that there are times she reveres him, there are times she respects him. She's definitely loyal to him, she'll definitely save him, but there's so many times she disrespects him. It says he's gross and old and geezer this and grandpa that and all that shit, right? So there's a definite mixed messages happening. You're cherry picking the good things, and I'm kind of stuck on the bad things. We're both cherry picking, right? But there's definitely been many times where she has also shown massive disrespect to him. So that's kind of what's got me hung up. It's the mixed messages, really. This is her development. That's another thing, too. This is a character arc, right? We start here and we go over there. So maybe by the end of the series, we'll have an answer. So there is that, too. Like, I'm not closed-minded. I'm taking in new information as we get it. Some of her antics is tied to comedic. Yeah, I mean, that's, sometimes you'll say and do things for the comedy of it. For instance, there could be a punchline in one sitcom episode 4 of season 1 where somebody says, I can't read, as a punchline of a joke. And then for the rest of the series, every time they read something, the fans are going to be like, well, you said you couldn't read. So, there's Futurama had that problem where they made a joke where Uranus had been changed. They changed the name of the planet because they're tired of people making a joke about Uranus. And they didn't want to just pronounce it Uranus. So they changed it to Eurectum. And for the entire rest of the series, they always call it Eurectum. They have to remember that every time. It doesn't come up often, but the times it comes up, they have to remember that. So, yeah, I mean, if it's comedic throwaway, you account for that, right? And maybe that's what some of this is. Or inner circle joke, like how Asian people eat in hot pot, or how camping or other relationships there are also sarcasm of heroin to a bunch of parodies. Right, yeah. So, that's another interesting thing, too. You can have a friend group who really talk bad about each other, but that's just how that friend group works. And other people see that and think they hate each other, or they think that they can also talk bad about the people because somebody else did it, and then they get checked really hard when it happens. No, that's our thing. Don't think this is reality. They can call me ugly. You call me ugly, I'm going to steal on you, right? So you're right. You're making some good points. And really, like, I'm at a point where it's like, give me more information and I'll make a determination later. I was just telling you where I was at when that happened. So, there we are. This is Sylvanitas Schnauzer, which is our resident Black Clover fan. with the Nero bird avatar. That avatar cracks me up, man. The bird cracks me up. The Diamond Kingdom thing seems to be a one-time experiment, as we see plenty of other Diamond Soldiers, and this may have been the comment I was thinking about, and can't be at all the sole survivor of their class. The guy Morris, I think he's described as a mage doctor or something like that, is being painted as a mad scientist type. Yeah, see, this is the part I didn't get. It was a one-time thing, and I was kind of making it like they do this all the time, right? So I don't think I clocked that it was just a one-time thing. So that, I think, has been clarified in comments and stuff. This is Kaihetai, 2 hours and 12 minutes. To be honest, as a fellow writer, I used to see it exactly the way you do, as if there were two different Gintamas existing in separate universes. But looking back, I deeply regret viewing it that way for so long. I understand that as a writer, your brain is wired to instantly categorize what you see, and you can clearly distinguish the mechanics of a gag from the structure of a tragedy. But in this case, your technical expertise is actually a handicap. Because you're so busy labeling the genres, you become a clinical observer. You care about the characters as constructs, but you aren't invested in them as people. Take the Shogun, my favorite character. Since you wrote this, I've seen it, the third episode with the Shogun, just for clarity's sake. God, I love that dude. He is awesome. He is the ultimate proof that those two Gintamas don't exist. He exists at the center of the most humiliating comedy while simultaneously carrying the heaviest narrative gravity. If you keep using your writer's instinct to separate these worlds, you'll never see how they aren't just overlapping. They are the same thing. It would be a tragedy if your ability to deconstruct a story becomes the very wall that prevents you from being moved by it. In Gintama, the laughter isn't a detour through the pain, it's the foundation for the deepest scars you'll eventually feel. This is a brilliant comment. I love it. Always love to hear from fellow writers. Great comment. Here's the thing. I wasn't very clear in this. It isn't my categorization that defines the way I see the series. I was putting into words what I'm experiencing. I'm experiencing when I watch Gintama, I am not moved by the tragedy in most cases. A couple times I am. A couple times I get emotional. But for the most part, I am not emotionally invested in the characters. I don't take them seriously. I don't see them as three-dimensional real people. I see them as comedic devices. So, what I said by using my writing brain to categorize this, what I was talking about last time, I was trying to analyze what I am experiencing. I was a scientist in a laboratory observing the phenomenon. I'm already experiencing this irregardless of whether I'm a writer or not. As a viewer, I'm not emotionally invested in the story and in the characters. All this talky talk I did last time, all this writer's talk, all this classification, all the shop talk, all the labels I used, that was my attempt to describe what I'm feeling. So it's not that I'm a writer that's getting in the way of me being invested in a story. It's that as a writer, I'm able to explain why I'm not invested in the story. And I could be wrong. Maybe there's just something that's not clicking. Although, just yesterday, 2 days ago now. 2 days ago? Or was it yesterday? It was yesterday, because I talked about the main topic. Just yesterday, I was able to cry at Demon Slayer, the end of Demon Slayer Season 3. That show hit me in the feelings really hard. I could barely talk. I was so emotional. I could barely talk. And the reason is, they don't cross the comedic line. It's a very funny show. They have some really ridiculous shit. There's a dude walking around with a pig head. Why doesn't the pig head rot off? It's stupid. It's ridiculous. It's very funny. But they don't cross that line. They don't have the main character turn into a dog. Or turn into pixels. Or whatever the hell weird shit. They don't have a storyline about hair. Boy, Gintama is a funny show. They don't do that. They don't cross the comedic line. So I'm never going to laugh as hard at Demon Slayer as I laugh at Gintama. But I will be emotionally wrecked. I could be wrong about why I don't emotionally connect with Gintama. Maybe it's something else. I don't know. But I was just trying to use the writing talkie talk to verbalize what I'm experiencing. So it's reverse of what you're saying. You're saying by looking at it that way, I'm preventing myself from being emotionally invested in the story. And I'm saying I'm not emotionally invested in the story, and I'm trying to look at it, and I'm trying to figure out why, and so I verbalized what I did. So we're kind of saying the same thing. I think it's just the reverse. How do I get more emotionally invested? Well, it starts with your comment. Maybe I'll think about it. Maybe I'll look at it differently. Maybe I'll try to turn my brain off. I don't know why when I'm watching something. One time, because yesterday I also saw the movie Requiem for a Dream. You saw that in the main topic if you watched the main topic. I didn't feel emotionally connected to that movie at all. I was laughing. And people have said it's a devastating movie. It's a train wreck. It's bleak. All the buzzwords. People are saying all those buzzwords. So why was I able to laugh my way through Requiem for a Dream, but I was emotionally wrecked by Demon Slayer? Why is that? Well, I think one got me emotionally invested in the characters as three-dimensional people, and the other one didn't. And Gintama doesn't. So, great comment. I hope you stick around. And I'm open to what you're saying. Like, I will try to, as I watch moving forward, I'll try to be less of a writing stick in the mud. But I think we're saying the opposite. So. All right, well, I guess that's all the comments. I thought there was a lot more in this. But I believe that's it. Unless they're hiding it. If I ever don't answer one of your comments, don't address it, let me know. And maybe even send me a screenshot. Because I search this. I do by newest because then it'll show me all the comments that it tries to hide from me. But if it's still if I didn't address it, then I didn't see it. So always let me know. All right, well, that is a wrap for this podcast. It won't be a long, cold month before the next one because I'm really going to try very hard to do a second podcast sometime this month, even if it's just a podcast at a time. But that'll mean I've done a podcast at a time for the early access. So we'll see what happens.